Hi.
And welcome to the House of Nerd Show.
You did it. You did the
Thank
intro.
you. It's me, your boy, Sergio. Joining me is Mel.
Hi. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Or I wonder maybe if I should switch my icon to Sergio and then you could be me.
No, I'd rather look at you than.
One time I tried to change the icon to him and the forehead was so big that it like cut off mid face. Crazy.
Oh,
So
man.
today we have WYATT Kennedy from Bolero, and then later on we'll have Oscar on. He's in the community. I'm sure you guys have interacted with him before. He has some exciting stuff going on. And then we're just gonna talk Mel. All
Oh,
things
great.
Mel. Favorite
No.
color.
I think that's kind of obvious already.
You know that Instagram thing I tagged you in yesterday? It was a trick.
Hmm.
We're just gonna discuss every every box.
I feel like people would slowly start dropping off as
Yeah.
we go through all of
You
my
never know.
favorites. We're going to get
You
to
know.
like my favorite holiday and then it's just going to be done. So,
We could, you know what we could do is I can screen share. We could start shopping for
oh,
decorations.
there you go.
There we
Hit up the
go.
Christmas Warehouse website.
Some
Yeah.
early Christmas content for y'all.
Sergio would be proud of what we're doing with the show. Yep.
You know what? In hindsight, I should have changed the background to green and red. A little festive, a little Christmas in July.
Next time. We need to do that next time.
We don't. He doesn't have to come back. we could change the passwords right now.
Perfect. Let's just take it
Here we
over.
go. Lame, lame Sergio. I know what this comment is in context, but I prefer it out of context. Tara, good morning. Fulci, Aaron. Sometimes I feel like there should be background music because I feel like I'm just like talking into air.
I could hum like the whole time you talk.
Yeah.
I could just hum jingle bells.
Where you gotta get a jingle though. You got one just randomly laying around. Princess. Oscar himself. Oscar, I'll be sending you the link momentarily. And then this guy, whoever. I can't read good, so I'm not sure what that says.
Anonymous user.
Uh-oh, I just clicked something wrong. All right, so let's just bring Wyatt out because I'm not good at small talk.
Hi, and by the way, that's a total lie. We were having small talk.
That's different. Speaking into like the internet is like Sergio had to convince me to do the show with him because I'm like very much not a person.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not.
What's the thing that ultimately made you be like, okay, I'll do it?
Just having your spirit broken.
Having been yeah. No, I get that. It's like everything I've ever done would probably quantify under like that, that barometer. So wow, hi all the people in the comments right now who are saying hello. It's really nice.
Yeah, and it's so funny because yeah, I'm just a floating head. I'm not really here. And it's so funny because, and I think he knows that. So when he's like not on, I kind of let him like be the guide, let him guide the show. Mm-hmm. I'm just here to give like, I feel like I'm the funny one. So I just I'll just throw a little quip in here and there. And then,
well, I've watched you guys, and I think what's really fascinating is your dynamic in terms of like what you both kind of represent readership wise.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of like, because I remember I watched I watched you guys review issue 1, and it was one of the most like conflicting experiences for me watching, because I was watching it in real time. And I remember that, Sergio wasn't vibing with it.
Mm-hmm.
But you were. And I remember the kind of like soft clash you two had as far as it went. And I remember you said something that I thought was like really interesting, because I don't see it a lot with a lot of contemporary criticism, like period, where you said you're able to put yourself outside of the fiction that you consume to kind of watch it omnisciently, which was interesting because I think that as the series progressed and I would check in on the reviews, then Sergio really came along to it, but also you had kind of gone from saying the kind of like, oh, omniscient third, to being like, oh shit, this is getting a little too relatable.
Yeah. Like, I didn't even want to talk about issue 3 on the show because it like I was like, that conversation hit a little too close to home.
You know what's so funny? Issue 3, I think, is the issue I am the most proud of. But I also know that that's the issue that really fucked with a lot of people in a good way. Like, they were just like, this is too real. Even my girlfriend, we were dating, but we weren't like committed yet. And I had written issue 3, like, I don't know, like 2 years prior, before I even knew her. And when she read issue 3, even she was like, yo, there are too many parallels even between like me and her right now, that she was like, this is a little uncanny. But I mean, like, you guys have been very, very like sweet about the book. So I really, really appreciate that.
Oh yeah. Like I remember the first review I read on Twitter. Oh wait, first of all, we're gonna talk about. I'm not gonna say the name of the media outlet, but I saw your Instagram story last night, and that irked me to no end. They described it, and it's totally not true. And I'll put my like reputation on the line for this. They said that, because I wrote it down.
I know what you're about to say too.
Reality hopping teenage melodrama.
So,
and I was like, they're teenage. What?
So here's the thing. When I made my comment about that, I actually wasn't trying to be catty, because my response was just like, to say it's for teenagers is a stretch. And that person DM'd me, and they were like, oh, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant it because the main characters are teenagers. And I said, they're in their 20s.
and then later, even older than that. I feel like you can't even really appreciate this book unless you've had the life experience to kind of back it up. Because I even me, like, I'm 33, and a lot of the things hit because I've been able to grow from experiences that are in the book.
Yeah, no, I'm very glad to hear that. I've gotten, once the series was over, and even while it was happening, I got a lot of really nice messages from people who really connected with it on that personal level. And it's kind of fascinating to me because I'm figuring out, you know, I'm 28. I just turned 28 like last month. And so by all accounts in the comic scene, especially like by image standards, I'm like naively young. Like I met, it was very funny. I met Brian Michael Bendis and David F. Walker a couple weeks ago. They were doing a signing at a store here. And I'm friends with Greg Rucka, who's the sweetest man in the goddamn world. And he was like, have you met the two of them yet? And I was like, no. And he was like, go introduce yourself. Like, and Rucka was a big supporter of Bolero. And I go there, and it was very fascinating to like approach them and be like, hey, I work for Image, and Image is stationed in Portland. So there's like a lot of people that like work, you know, like editorial, you know, accounting, like all kinds of like, we're everywhere, you know? And so I'm like, oh, hey, you know, like I'm from Image. And Rucka told me to bring your first issue and give it to them. And so it was interesting to kind of watch the gears turn on then, from going like, oh yeah, I work for Image, to this kind of like, oh, that's nice, young child. And then I give them the first issue. And then they're like, oh shit, like you're one of us. And the funniest part was Walker going like, man, like, because you know the format of it with the square bound, that was a super late game edition. That was you know, our publisher Eric Stevenson, who was a really big champion for the book, was like, yeah, no, we should like make it like a prestige format. And when I gave it to David F. Walker, I remember he looked at me and he said, wow, this looks great. What have you been doing like before this? What other publishers? And I'm like, this is my first one. This is like my first one out of the gate. I've never done comics before. And the kind of like flabbergasted, like, what the fuck are you kind of a thing. And but I mean, like, even what you said of like that kind of life experience, like I grew up reading a lot of Greg Rucka stuff, and I wouldn't have fucking thought that like he would be like, oh yeah, no, this is real, this is genuine, this has heart. And I think I even wrote it in my outro for the series that I think, you know, with a lot of comics and a lot of escapism stuff, you know, and especially majorly in comics, people want to be Batman, but I cannot imagine a single person that would read Bolero and be like, I want to be like Devin, you know?
I think that's why it works, because I think we, let's be honest, all are a little mentally ill. And so Devin, I was like, I hate that I can recognize qualities in you that maybe I had when I was 21, 22, or I could see where I would not have done that at this age versus then. And I think that's why she was so compelling. And so when I saw the very first review I saw for it was like they were just really bashing on Devin as a character.
Oh yeah, I believe one of the tweets I saw was, I'd really like Bolero if Devin wasn't such a narcissistic bitch.
And it's so funny because I know exactly who you're talking about, and he has very strong opinions.
How's his relationship with his mom?
Oh, I'm not sure, but I do know who you're talking about. And I know he has a very interesting life story. But I will say that I was like, I saw that and I was like, I refuse. I cannot. Like, you're getting muted for a week because no. And so I remember, yeah. So I remember when it was time to do the show, I was like, I'm about to defend Devin, because it to me it didn't make any sense personally, because I feel like you're not supposed to like her at the beginning. Like, she is impulsive, she is flighty. Yeah. But that's a character. Like, that's what makes that person who they are. And so I appreciated it on that level, because you do want to see her, like, let's see where she's at the end of the series.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's weird because I mean, like, I will be completely honest. I am totally against the current model of how comics can be reviewed, specifically because I think it's really hard, and I think it's impractical to hold an entire series up to one issue, you know. Yes. And I'm even changing that. You know, my next book, I'm doing it like you do critics who get TV screeners, where I'm like, no, you guys are going to get the first 3 issues, because you need to get at least a little bit of a clearer picture of like where this is going. Because there are some series that, like, you read a first issue of and you go, oh my God, I don't know how this can possibly be good. And with Bolero, it was interesting because, you know, Devin is my baby. So I'm like a parent. I'm like defensive of her. But even like to friends that don't have a super hyper close relationship with me, and I'm explaining like motivation and I'm explaining like who she is, even they were like, what's really the worst thing that she does in that issue besides, you know, she ducks out on her friend to fuck a rando, and then she makes a really impulsive choice, drunk, might I add. And it was just like really like the like, I mean, I'm not trying to play a certain card, but I cannot help but chalk up a little bit of like, just some general hating women.
Oh, no, absolutely.
I'm getting off of this.
She acts more like what we are okay with men acting like. Oh, because, you know, men, you can hook up with someone and it's hot, you know, to go and hook up with some girl. But like, if you're the girl, it's not hot, but, or, you know, to get drunk. And with her, I mean, I really identified that first issue. Y'all were talking about issue 3, but for me it was issue 1, because I remember like years of my life where I would go, you know, I was going to the bars every single night here in Dallas. And I remember getting there and thinking, oh my God, I'm sober. And like, this sucks. Like, this is just the worst. And you hurry up and self-sabotage, you know, you like get the shots in, you get things going. And then you're like, okay, now I can be normal around people, you know. But I, you know, and as a critic, what you were just talking about, it is really hard to get one issue and, you know, review an entire series and tell people whether or not they should read this series based on the first one. But I did find her really relatable, and it is kind of refreshing to see a a woman who's actually real, because that's, you know, we act like that sometimes. Sorry. Sorry, society, but we do. So
I greatly appreciate hearing that, because it's funny. I can't pinpoint exactly who the book is for. Like if we were in an office and we're like pulling down like a pie chart of like, here are the metrics and this is who it really affects and everything. It's been so fucking weird because, you know, I get young women, I get older women. I've had single fathers message me to talk to me about how much the book meant to them, married fathers, couples. Like it's all over the place. So I don't want to subscribe to the notion that it's just like, this is a book that's only, you know, it's for teenagers, because I don't think it is that. And I think, you know, I wasn't writing this because I was like, I got to make like a fucking statement and it's going to be sick and everyone's going to be like, what a fucking genius you are, you know, kind of a thing. It was just like this, you know, this story had been with me for like 6 years prior and had gone through like all these kinds of changes. And honestly, the thing that kind of like pushed me to be like, okay, let's like actually fucking do this was the TV show Undone. If either of you have watched that.
I haven't.
And yeah, oh, it's fantastic. It's Rosa Salazar from Alita. And it's a rotoscoped animated show from the creators of BoJack Horseman. But the main character that Rosa plays is this like very fascinating woman who's she is very similar to Devin in a lot of ways. But watching it from my end, I was like, I don't hate this person. In fact, I want to know like more about this person. And I think when you were reading the book, my goal is to kind of like peel back layers to show a reader like, hey, you got to have empathy for this person, you know, because ultimately I could count on my hand, and I try to be self-aware about like the things that Devin does, but I think you can count on your hand like what are the real like fucked up or like even mild faux pas that she does. And I don't think they're terrible. I think they're very human. And I think it's one of those things. I remember we got very positive reviews across the board. And I remember every week there was this one guy who really got under my skin, where he would just say like, oh yeah, no, this just seems like a book about terrible people making terrible choices. And I was like, what fucking book are you reading, my guy? Like, where are you like, especially by issue 3. Like by issue 3, where the front half of it is like, here's this is what a happy person looks like, and even though they're happy, the shit doesn't, like, the inner workings don't go away, you know. But it was, yeah, the critical response has been very interesting.
And I love how, like, maybe when you wrote it, you had like a clear intention of, you know, everything that you were writing, but like going back and rereading it, and, you know, and again, and there's so many things even in the first issue that like I was like, I have a conspiracy theory about this. and then I Googled, because I was like, there's the capgrass has always bothered me, right? And I was like, why do I know that word, but I don't know that word? Like, I feel like I know it and I don't. And then I finally
Google it.
And I finally Googled it, and I was like, why does this whole book make 100% more sense to me? 1000%. And then even
thank you for Googling it.
When they're at the drive-in and then the names on the board, I'm like, I have conspiracies about Zion, I have conspiracies about everything. And so it made me like even more, and I was like, oh, you guys,
that's good though, is that because it's like, that's, you know, I make a fucking meal out of everything that I write. Like issue 1, I'm not being hyperbolic, went through like 50 drafts. Like it was, you know, and when I'm queuing these things up, you know, it's not for no reason. It's not just, you know, superfluous. Like there's a quote from Guillermo del Toro where he always talks about like, oh yeah, background stuff. It's like, no, like people refer to it as like, oh, it's eye candy. And his thing is like, no, it's not eye candy, it's eye protein. Like, you should still be able to get a lot of information about these characters in this world based off even just like innocuous like background things, and those things are important. So it's really glad, it makes me really happy that you're like, okay, I get it.
Oh no, we were eating good in issue 1 because and it's the way like
what other conspiracy theories do you have that maybe I can answer, or I'll just be like, I don't know.
Well, I don't want to. Okay, let's preface this with a spoiler, and this could be wrong, but don't hurt my feelings because I'm sensitive. No. I'm a Cancer, so
I'm sensitive.
I'm a Gemini. It's okay.
Is Zion Devin?
That is so funny because I have had people ask me that before, and I will. This is gonna sound like a cop out. If that's what you choose to believe, I'm not going to argue with you.
Okay.
But when I was writing it at the time, that was not what I had in mind.
Okay.
I'm a big Zion to me is one of the funniest, because the funny thing is you see his name in the character design, but that's not even his name. That was just a placeholder name that I threw in there. Like when he says his name in issue 1 and it's like that weird thing, he's saying his real name. Like that's not just me being like, oh man, she's drunk. But I'm a big fan of like like really like an innocuous thing that kind of kickstarts things in a story. Like I really love David Cronenberg's The Fly. And I love how in that movie there's no preamble, there's no like you just go into it, and there's a bunch of details in it that any other movie, especially now, would be like, here's how he built the machine, and here's how he did this, and here's how this relationship connects, and all this stuff. And The Fly is just like, no, you just go for it. And then it's like, oh, what caused the accident? He was drunk, same thing. And I feel like making those details like such a, because I feel like, as avid readers of things that are based on heavy continuity, I think it makes sense that a lot of people are like, I want to connect like all of these dots. And sometimes when I'm writing, I'm just like, that's, if you want to go for it, but I'm not even thinking about that. But it's funny, you're not the only person that has ever asked me that. And I could see it. I could absolutely see it.
And then there's so are they already in like an alternate? Like I know what you said in the end of number 5, and I don't want to touch on that because I feel like you need to have the whole experience before you could read the afterword in that. But as it's presented in the beginning of the series, alternate dimensions, are they already in one? Because okay,
that was a deliberate choice. I wanted it to be slightly disorienting for some people because I didn't, it's set in Los Angeles, and I didn't want to just spoon feed like a kind of like, here you go, like, you can see things like the LA skyline, and you can see like Griffith's, observatory, but it's covered in snow. And so your brain isn't immediately going to be like, oh, that's LA. If you don't know the LA skyline, you're just like, a city. But when I'm mentioning like streets, or I'm mentioning like little like innocuous kind of details, that's like, if you just pull up like Google Maps, you'll be like, oh, okay, this makes a lot of sense. But I wanted it to, the decision to make it already start in an alternate world was actually from Spider-Verse, because I really like that movie from the get-go starts off in Miles' alternate world, where there's like different ads for things and like slight adjustments and like all that kind of stuff. Because I feel like, if you're starting it way too traditional, I feel like there's a little bit of magic that's lost. And then the same thing of just like, I want people to get acclimated to like, this is different, and you got to notice these things, and you got to really like get over the fact that it's like, it snows in Los Angeles, movie casts are different, it's not a big deal.
And see, I'm such a nosy reader. I'm sorry. I'm such a nosy person in general that like, I'm like, why is that spelled wrong? Number 1. Number 2, that's not who's in that movie.
That's the Michael B. Jordan is what I kind of stopped, and I'm like, wait a minute. And
Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, and so I go back and
I'm
like,
really funny because that one was not me being cheeky. That was actually a typo that I just noticed. You look at these pages a million times because did either of you Google like the specific Michael B. Jordan Emma Watson connection?
No, but I Googled the movie because I was like, was he in that? Like I couldn't remember. And
no,
so,
but
then I was like, why would I was like, well, why would his name be on there? It really didn't connect with me yet that we were in a different universe or whatever. And so that's when it really started to hit. I was like, oh, okay. And then as things unfold, I'm like, okay.
Oh yeah, no, that was one of those things of I thought, like there's a lot of elements to it that I thought would be just kind of fun. And one of them was like, okay, it's like when you're doing alternate universe stuff and you're doing movies, you could do something as simple as like changing like a title, like if you play like, BioShock Infinite, and there's the reality hopping in that, and it's like, oh, they have a marquee where it says like, oh, at first it's Return of the Jedi, and then it's like Revenge of the Jedi because that was the original one. And I thought like I love La La Land the movie a lot, and I'm always fascinated by like what could have been, because Michael B. Jordan was courted for a while, but he had to drop out because of scheduling conflicts. And Emma Watson declined being in La La Land because she wanted to do Beauty and the Beast.
And I'm choices.
Right? and I'm always like, man, what the hell would that movie have been like? Like, would Emma Watson walk away with an Oscar, or would it have been like a clusterfuck? Like what? Like, and I feel like just attaching like that kind of a thing in that story, you're just like, oh, okay. And then, it comes up again later because, Devin's boyfriend, Will, is so clearly modeled after Michael B. Jordan. Like, we're not being subtle about it. And if like, I think everyone, when it comes to like media they consume and kind of how it affects their life, we have this like tendency for like a bleed over where it's like, oh, you're really into like this one actor, or you really like, it's like your taste of what you like at a really, young, informative age, or it's like, for me, it's like I grew up watching, like Toonami and like seeing like cool, tough anime women that are like mean to like the protagonist. And then I get older, and then in college, I'm just dating like a lot of mean women. And I'm like, why do I do this? And I'm having a conversation with a friend about like old stuff we used to consume. And then you're like, oh,
For which your social media spaces are a great way to find sad girl hour mangas, or manga, if you will. Not sure what your pronunciation is. How would you say it?
I say manga, but it's funny because I have a friend who says anime instead of anime. I'm always like, I hate you for that.
I'm gonna start saying that.
He also calls Naruto.
Oh no, because I say Naruto. You can't just say it. You have to like put a little.
I say it to my girlfriend really loves Naruto, and so I always say like Naruto, and she's like, please don't call it that.
So is his son not Boruto?
Right? What, like Boruto? Like it's one of those things of just like you say it enough times, it just starts to sound weird.
Yeah. Because I read last night, I was supposed to be doing stuff for the show, but then I saw you talking about Sayonara. What is it? Eerie?
Yeah.
Oh man, I was like, yeah, let's get depressed in the middle of the night. I was like, what?
Yeah.
It was so good though. If you guys have the time to check that out, it's so good.
I don't know about you, but I have been reading like a ton of really great manga lately. Like I some stuff that I was even averse to, of like, okay, because like I grew up reading gross. I grew up reading stuff like, the original Akira run, or like Alita Battle Angel. And like me and my friends, we had in middle school, my friends and I, we'd pull together like our weekend money we'd make from doing like odd jobs, and we had like a Shonen Jump subscription that we shared together, like getting the actual physical thing in the mail. And I had a falling out with anime and manga because I think only in the last couple of years it's kind of become cool again. I don't think we're quite past like the kind of like, oh, this is like a mainstream like cultural phenomena yet, outside of like people who really, really love it, which is still a really big margin. But like I had put off reading Chainsaw Man for like a really long time because I was like, how good can it be? And then I finally like got into it and I was like, oh fuck, this is a masterpiece. It's so good.
Yeah, and then I think Twitter put me back into manga. It feels weird saying that, by the way. I'm a degenerate. Manga. They put me back onto it because I read it growing up, but I was like a degenerate. I was a pervert. I'll admit it.
You don't say.
Yeah, when I was a kid, like I would read like Marmalade Boy, and that's the one about the stepbrother, stepsister. I would read Mars and stuff because I'm like, yes, I want men to treat me awful and be mean. So I read like my brothers.
Formative shit that like
my older brother was like, he was like the one into like Shonen Jump, and my dad got us into like Trigun. I think was like my first anime, if you will. And,
How do you feel about that remake they're doing?
Oh, you know what? I'm pretty open when it comes to, and this, I know you're gonna hate me for this one because I don't know how to say it, but I only say it in my own way. It also pisses my husband off that I say Yu Hakusho.
Hakusho.
I said Yu Hakusho. My husband is like, stop calling it that, and I'm like, but that is not what it's called. That was like my favorite one. That was not like weird growing up. Like that was my pretty like normal-ish.
Really? And did you also like kind of get exposure from that from stuff like Toonami and like whatever kind of like leak through of like,
for sure.
Yeah, that was me.
And sci-fi, because sci-fi.
Sci-fi and Mondays. That's right. Yeah, because it's funny for me. It was Rurouni Kenshin had a really big impact on me, and Tenchi Muyo. Weirdly enough, I think like seeing that and seeing like when you're a kid and you're interested in girls, but like you don't have any of the social etiquette or anything, and you're just like, I really want girls to like me, and you're watching like an anime that's like a total harem anime about like aiming for one dude, and you're just like, you're like 10 and you're like, I wish that was me.
Yeah. And then on the, what is it called when it's like reverse?
Oh God, what is that term for when it's reverse?
Because like, that was my genre for quite some time, and I was like 10 guys and just me just trying to get through middle school.
Middle school.
This is great. You're just like, no.
I all of a sudden have 10 stepbrothers.
Oh no, I'm a stepbro. Oh God, holy shit. But yeah, no, it's been funny because I've been working on my new series, and it's like heavily. I'm really curious how people are going to respond to it post Bolero, because I think with comics, whether or not we intend to, I think it's normal that an author goes from like they're kind of spinning their wheels and doing a lot of the same for the first go around, and then if they ever purport like I'm doing something radically different, and then you read and you're like, this is the same.
Oh, do you mind? I have a couple.
It's the Office meme of it's the same picture,
Do you mind if I share like the images from your Twitter?
Yeah, go for it.
So this, vibes. I saw this and I said, I don't care what it's about. Who cares? Look at the selection. I love a good convenience store shot. This appeals to me on all levels.
This is the vibiest book I'll ever make.
He said Sergio leaves and the show no longer remains a family show.
We took it so down.
Or we took it up. Who knows?
Oh God. Yeah, no. So yeah.
So good.
God. I finished writing an issue the other day, and I let my girlfriend read it because my girlfriend is amazing, and she engages with my work on the most supportive level that sometimes she gives me ideas that I'm like, I'm going to use that shit. And she's my editor, and she's my story editor too, to keep things clear. And I wrote an issue the other day that like, I was like, I think I fucking nailed it. And I gave it to her, and I had to like run an errand. And when I came back, she was just sitting on the bed, and she was just like, "You fucking nailed it, you son of a bitch." And I was like, "Yeah!" Like when you get that kind of like approval for it. But like this book, I'm excited for people to read it because it's fun. I feel like it's a kind of fun that is missing from a lot of American comics right now. But it's also made, I feel like, for people who grew up on like Toonami and MTV, like early MTV, like not like beginning of it, but like, before the dip. And like strong music video aesthetics before they became like cell phone commercials, and like skateboarding culture. And especially like, I'm, like I said, I'm 28, and I'm a huge Tyler the Creator fan. But that's also because, when I was in high school, Tyler was also a teenager. And so kind of like seeing like, oh shit, like this is what like this is what we're allowed to be. This is the way that we're allowed to express ourselves or personify ourselves. And like teenagers are allowed to be portrayed as smart, but not the smartest person in the room. They're allowed to be like goofy and dorky, because like the main character in this book, I modeled him after Frank Ocean, because I'm a huge Frank Ocean fan too.
And that's Sweet Baby Frank, for those who don't know. Waves will make me cry as soon as the ambiance starts. I'm crying. Ooh. I mean, not Waves. Waves is the movie.
Which one? Godspeed?
Godspeed, yes. Godspeed.
Oh God.
Automatic cry. Oh, sorry, that's just
no. It's so good. I adore Blonde. In fact, the title of the book, Nights, specifically comes from the Frank Ocean.
Okay.
But like modeling, because the book is set in 2003, and I was really, I mean, this past couple of years has been really rough, I feel like, for a lot of people. Obviously, understatement of the fucking century. But I feel like when it comes to a lot of escapism, and it's funny because Bolero was kind of a strong indictment about like, don't do too much. Like you can do it, but like, don't do too much. And here I wanted to make something that was like, you look forward to getting it every month, because you're allowed to be in a world where it's like the internet isn't hyper present, and there's not, cell phones, and you have to like hang out with your friends, and especially when you're young, and these characters are very much modeled after my friends, and it's like, I hung out with skateboarder kids, but I couldn't skateboard, but I had a video camera, so it's like I was the videographer.
No, that was me in high school. I absolutely hung out with like, in downtown Atlanta, there was like a shop called Soul Monkey, and I was there like every weekend. Never knew how to skate, but
it's fun. It's kind of like, I'm also a big sucker for like the kids / teens on an adventure subgenre, which is ironic because I am not the biggest fan of a very big cultural Netflix show right now that I will not say the name of. But like,
oh, you mean Weird Stuff?
Yeah, weird stuff. Doings.
The generic one.
The RC Cola of it. It's the Tubi version. But like seeing like, I feel like when you're a teenager, especially when you're like, like 16, 17, and you're on the precipice of adulthood, that's like that weird period of time where like kind of magic starts to disappear from your life. And it's like, you're looking at the barrel of like responsibility and college, if you're going to go to that, and like, adult shit. And it's not fun. And I didn't want to make something that was just like nostalgia baity, like remember these better times. But I want to just kind of create a wholesale world from the ground up of just like, you want to be here. And per my writing, I'm mapping out the run is only going to be 30 issues, and I'm kind of blocking it off like 10 issue seasons of a TV show. And, you know, season 1 is like the fun issue, and season 2 is kind of like it's getting a little bit more serious, and season 3 is like oh God, I missed season 1 because it was lighter, you know, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. But I'm so stoked for people to read this, and I actually think it'll strike a bigger chord than Bolero did.
And speaking of, let's just touch on the art from Bolero.
Yes.
How do you pronounce her name? Luana or Luana?
Luana Vecchio.
Luana.
Yes.
I was afraid I scared her away because I was so obsessed, and I was like as soon as she made her print shop, I was like the first person, and I was like, order everything. So this book is amazing. This one on the left, I got that print, like super, the biggest size they had, and I have it over my bed, just butt cheeks over my bed. Yeah. Love it. Sweet baby Devin. Love it so much. And the prints, like if you guys do decide to order, top quality. They're so good. And then I got some from Lovesick, but this one was like this. I went for this, and then Lovesick sidetracked me. But
Lovesick, not to step out of bounds. Lovesick is so fucking dope. Like,
I'm so excited.
You're gonna love it. I've said it before. It was a comiXology thing that she put out independently for a while, and I was able to read it back when it was up, and it was the book that made me pick her to reach out to do art for this. And then when Image contacted her and was like, "We want to publish it," and she took it down, I've just been kind of sitting here being like, oh my God, you people aren't ready yet. Like, it's so fucking good.
And that's like, and see, this is why I thought Devin and Zion were the same person. Because I'm like, are they siblings? Is this one of those mangas?
Step Bro all over again.
This is also one of my favorite things. I love the idea of like the universe being like woven. I'm an amateur knitter, in case nobody knew. YouTube taught. Yeah. I only know how to make straight lines. I make one time I made a hat, and all I did was like I made a scarf, and my daughter, she was like 4 or 5 at the time, and I promise you, all I did was like I folded it in half, and then I sewed it to close. I'm like, this is how you make hats, right? And it had like 2 like ears on accident because I sewed it flat. And I just told her, I'm like, oh, it's a bear hat. Like, you're a little bear. I'm gonna find that picture because I really thought I was doing something with that one.
You get the A for effort, because hopefully it was one of those things of like, you know, your daughter is like telling someone one day about like, my mother made me this wonderful hat, and it was made with love, and she knew exactly what she was doing, and you're like, I don't fucking.
Oh, I think she's like 10, and I think she's already broken because like her favorite anime is like Promised Neverland, and I'm like, that's super depressing for a 10-year-old to be like that. She has like blankets and like shirts and drinks, and then she was like Assassination Classroom. I'm like, unfortunately, I don't think you could take this stuff to school. Because she was like, can I get this for like a hoodie for school? And I was like, I don't know if that will resonate well with the admin. So
she's like, Mom, can I get this perfect blue Trapper Keeper?
Look, that's so funny because I do have like a giant like perfect blue movie poster in my living room. And my son, one of my sons, he's like, I have a 4 and 5-year-old, and my 5-year-old will every day he'll come out there and be like, I like her knives. And I'm like,
why is that lady angry?
Or is she happy? I guess it's
or is she happy? Even more unsettling, your child comes back and is like, yeah, Satoshi Kon is pretty good, huh? You're like, oh
no. She starts reading Blood on the Tracks. That's when it's a wrap.
Oh no.
Oh, that was the one that Twitter recommended to me like last year, and I was like,
no, not when you're a mom.
Matt. Oh yeah, you could pull it up. My bad, Mel. I just saw I don't know how to work this. Do you? I have the question.
Yes.
Hold on. Fulci. Mel, I forgot how this works. How was it getting? And this is another name I always get wrong. Is it Mafood?
Mafood, yeah.
Okay. He's one of my older brother's favorite artists.
Jim is the best.
And Maria is
Maria love it. Yeah.
Outside of like Luana and Maria, I will buy. I don't care what she does. She can just like cry on a piece of paper and I'll buy it.
Oh yeah, no, Maria's fantastic. Well, Jim lives here in Portland and we're friends. So I think it was just like me, him, Stephen Green, who did Sea of Stars with Jason Aaron, and like a couple other people. We were just like hanging out, and like the book, like Bolero, had just been like officially picked up by Image, and so I grew up reading Mahfoud stuff. It's funny because my first exposure to him, without even really knowing it, was that. I was a big fan of Community when I was younger, like when it was coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got the season 1 DVD, there was like this little mini comic that came with it. It was a Kick Puncher comic, and Mahfoud did the art for that. And I remember seeing it as a kid and being like, "Damn, this fucking art is sick." And then I get older, and then I'm like actually properly introduced to his stuff. And he's also like the nicest man you'll ever meet. Like he is just like so fucking cool, and obviously his work is amazing. And so I was just like, "Hey man, like, you want to do a cover?" And he was like, "Yeah, bet, let's fucking do it, man." And then with Maria Lovett, that was Image, actually. Image, I believe Image gave me, they were like, "Hey, we wanna get you a variant, and we want to get it from someone great and someone who the people love right now." And it was Maria Lovett. Oh God, I'm so bad at blanking on them. Okay, Maria Lovett, Jenny Frison, and oh God, Tula Lette. There it is, Tula Lette. And Maria was the first one to come back and be like, "I want to do it." And so it was just like, I'm really hands off about that kind of stuff. I gave both Jim and Maria, I just gave them like a PDF of the first issue, and I was like, "Do whatever you want. I have like no notes. I don't care what I get back because you guys are fucking experts at this. So like, do whatever." And I'm really, really glad how they turned out, and also how many people like really ended up getting a lot of those variants.
Oh yeah, I'm like especially if it's a book I like,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm gonna be like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be conservative this week financially," and then it's like, if my husband only knew he told me straight up like, "Bring one more box of comics into this house," and I'm just like, the thing is that I'm like low key a hoarder, so I cannot like I have to house them. Like, what if I don't buy them? Like, are they just gonna sit there alone? Like, I have to give them a home.
It's like the Sarah McLachlan like sad dog infomercial.
Yeah.
You're like in the arms of the angels playing. You're like, so many comics are lost every year. Like, I gotta adopt them. Fuck. The song is so sad.
And then you guys did Something for Your Mind, which was also, and it's so interesting. You spoke a little bit before the show about like, little church stuff. And it's just, I just find that fascinating, the trajectory of and then on not only that, but then you have gospel.
I call it the fucked up love trilogy.
And see, this one I was like, honestly, I was like, I don't even like, I feel like I've read some like weird shit, and I mean this in the best way possible, but I got to the last in Image 3 and I was like, what the fuck? In like the best way, I promise, in the best way possible. And it's like, how would I pitch this? How would I be like, "Hey, I have this story," and then it's so funny because like I feel like this specific like story, I feel like reaches a specific audience, right? And so it's inside of Image Anthology, and I'm just like, I wonder how many people who might not necessarily, be into this.
I hope. I'm never trying to be like a shock artist.
Yeah.
But there is always that part of me that like, because it was that story. Gospel for a New Century came out because it was right after Bolero was publicly announced. And I caught up with Eric Stevenson, the publisher, and I took him out to lunch because I'm very grateful for all the opportunities that he's given me to make these weird fucking things. And we got lunch, and then I left, and then I got an immediate email from him where he was like, "Hey, I'm putting together the anthology. I want you to do something." And he was like, "You can do whatever." He was like, "I think if you do a longer thing that we can chop into 3 parts, that's even better. Like, just, go fucking nuts." And I am not good about, like, I have serious ideas that are like, long, or they're multi-issue, but I'm like, oh fuck, how do you write a one shot, basically? So I was like figuring it out as I went along. And for that one, I was like, when I finally saw like who was in the anthology, I was kind of like, people are gonna know what they get with some of those guys. And I feel
absolutely.
But I also felt like people were going to expect a certain thing because of Bolero having come out. And I was just like, no, I'm gonna give him something like fucking weird.
Yeah.
And like you said, it is, I genuinely believe, I think I do write for like manga readers.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is not on purpose. I'm never like, I don't want these fucking American, readers to not, to feel like they can get into it. But like, there's the liberalness of like violence and sex. And like you said, the third part, which is just so fucking weird. Like, the best part was sending it to Eric at Image, and like each part he'd be like, "Oh man, this is really good," and then part 2 he'd be like, "Oh fuck, this is really good and fucking weird." And he gets to part 3 and he's like, "What the fuck, dude?"
Yeah, because at the end of the second one, I was like, where are we going with this? Because I was concerned, because I was like, what is like happening right now? And then I get to 3 and I was like, oh, you just said like fuck it and went there. Like you just wrote it.
What's funny too is that, not to be like armchair, like this is what my work is about, but like that one, I wrote that one, I wrote part 2 and part 3 right when the Ukraine invasion happened. And that was like, in a past couple of years that has just been a fucking, shit sandwich. That was just another one of, being a relatively young person and feeling like the failures of institutions that, in some way you grow up thinking like, they've always got our back, like they care about us. And then time has shifted, and I feel like there's this transparency of just like, oh wait, they don't give a shit. They could give the furthest of shits, and especially from like older people, and like, especially like 50 up. You don't even have to use the term like boomer, of just like,
just made the cutoff.
Yeah, like you just like, they're just not thinking about us,
And it has like a very clear message in it, despite some of the imagery, and it's very like the cyclical nature of destruction, and how it's like it is what it is, and it's just gonna keep happening. And what can you do but accept it at this point?
Oh yeah, I'm far from a nihilist. When I write my stuff, because I cannot help but write like some romantic element in things, because I feel like to not do that is like weirdly neglectful of life, and it's also probably because I grew up reading a lot of like J. Michael Straczynski Spider-Man, and I always loved how he wrote Peter and Mary Jane, because it felt like a very authentic, grounded, loving, complex relationship. And I think when you're exposed to that kind of thing, and in comics, I know there's kind of like this open thought process of like, fucking Superman gets married, he's not interesting anymore. And I'm like, that is a notion developed by someone who's never like been in a loving relationship before, because that's when things get the most interesting. And doing a story about like young people who, are genuinely in love, and they have this goal and they have this mindset because of everything that's come before them, that it's like, you know, it's kind of like we said, it's like you can have sad girl hours or sad boy hours alone, but there is something to be said about, like, you know, when the world is just kind of fucking you, but thank God you're with someone, you know, thank God you have someone that you can just be like, they are mine, you know?
Mm-hmm. And so when you were writing the scene, no. so 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 the birth. No, you guys check it out. That was that. You know what? It's something that sticks with you, and you might not ever look at childbirth again the same way.
I've got a copy of the trade here, and we put all of Gospel in the trade as well. And I'm really excited because I like to think of it as this kind of like fucked up palate cleanser. That it's like reading like 5 issues of like dense emotional self-awareness journeys and dealing with like depression and blah blah blah. And then, you know, you have like these fucking heavy afterwards by me and Luana. And then, you know, at the very end, it's like, oh, and we also put this in here. And people, I hope, are just like, Jesus fucking Christ.
You know what? I hope the pages stick and they don't know that it's not Bolero. and this is just like an alternate.
I'm really proud of it. I will say, though, that my next book it's slightly less horny. There's elements, but it's definitely like just a little. Well, I don't want to. Okay, I'll say this though. There's an issue. There's a character. There's a character in it who people who have read the scripts, they're like, it's like the fan favorite character. And like I said, it's set in 2003. And you know, this is pre-internet in a lot of ways, and so he sometimes, like, because he's Japanese, he'll translate hentai for people who want to buy it. And in the 4th issue, there's like, you see a whole page of what he's like translating, and we have to be very careful because like there's like, comics is weird. There's like stuff that they tell you like, oh, you can't get away with this. But then you open like Sex Criminals or like even just that image put out from Joe Casey's Sex, and you flip through and you're like, I don't think that's true. I just think you're not going for it.
Oh man, Faithless. There's some things and
we go for it. But the funny part is that it's a part of the page is a part of a joke that these that 2 characters are talking about. But also when you read the page, it's actually foreshadowing events that'll happen over the duration of the entire series. And I'm like, I hope people analyze it, and they hope people like, fuck, I gotta figure this out. But it's like, it's just so, Elle, you'll appreciate it. I need to know from you, was it just me or was Herogasm, the TV show, was it a little underwhelming?
So here's the thing. I keep saying I'm catching up. I'm on season 2, episode 7 though.
Okay.
And Herogasm is one of my, like, unironically, one of my favorite minis from a series.
Degenerate.
Yes, and I fully admit to all of this, and I'm very open about it. I don't feel like you should hide anymore. You know, it's 2022.
Who would I? It's funny. I have like a Finsta not safe for work Twitter that I'm always like looking at stuff and liking stuff, and then there's always like a brief moment where my heart stops and I'm like, oh shit, what account am I on right now? What can people see?
Oh man, that's Chris Sheehan, his lewd account. And I'll be on there, and I forget that when you like something, other people can it'll pop up. Yeah, sometimes it'll show people like what you liked, or it'll recommend a post for somebody else. And like Chris Sheehan's lewd account, and then Godiva.
Oh, Godiva, yeah.
Godiva, yeah. Their account always trips me up. Somebody will be like, "Oh, you just liking vaginas today?" Like, I guess so. That's what it's art. It's high art.
Actually might be contributing to my next book too.
Really? That's so cool.
So I'm very excited for that if that works out, because they're fucking incredible.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like I had one other thing to ask you. That's funny that you were saying like it's the new book. Would you say it would be like rated lower, like maturity wise?
It's not a teen book. It's not. It's far from all ages.
Okay.
It is. I don't know. It's like it walks this fine line. I feel like because I mean like it's an ensemble. It's probably the biggest cast of characters that I've ever written, and these characters are kind of like, in my mind at least, when I'm writing them, they're sectioned off in as if they exist in their own books, and so you know sometimes you'll get something that does feel like it's more like, you know, like teen. You could see it, like I said, I know I keep using it as a reference point, but it's like something you could see on Toonami, and like even with like the loose censorship they did on that kind of stuff, a lot of implications, but
so,
it's
manga.
it's cheeky, it's teasy, but it's not like, you know, it's not World's End harem.
Like,
But
have you guys read Goodbye Poon Poon Pun?
Oh yeah.
So
have you read A Girl on the Shore?
Who?
Have you read A Girl on the Shore by the same author?
No, but I will.
Oh. With that one.
Because somebody I saw Goodbye. I saw it the review for it. I didn't know what it was about. I just saw the cover and I thought it looked cute. I like the yellow vibes. And the review said a coming of age story that left me feeling empty inside. And I said, oh, add to cart. I'm into it. And so I start reading it, and it's so funny that, like, you know, as rigid and like uptight as I feel like Western culture tries to represent Asian culture, like it's a lot more honest and open about sex and stuff like that in it. And so like I'm not gonna obviously be like, my daughter is 10, like read this, but I also feel like there's a lot of elements in it where I'm just like, if I read something like that when I was growing up, like it makes you feel like it's okay. Like there's things that are okay. It's a part of growing up. And so it's just it's so funny how like subjective that kind of stuff is. But I also feel like, you know, starting them off this early in, you know, manga, you can only go down. You can only go down.
Honestly, I always think, whenever I think about like, I personally will probably never have kids, but my sister, I have two nieces, and they're very young right now, but the kind of joy of like, as they get older is kind of being like, cool, I'm gonna be cool uncle. What am I gonna introduce them to? What movies am I gonna show them? Like, where am I gonna, like, what cool stuff are we gonna do? Because there's always the goal of like, they get older one day and then they're really pissed off at my sister and they're like, I want to hang out with Uncle Wyatt. He does cool things. But like, I always think like, okay, they're girls. What is something that I would probably give them? And funny enough, I always go to Inuyasha. I always feel like Inuyasha is a really good starting point because, you know, the mangaka for that is like one of the most celebrated women, you know, and one of the most wealthy mangaka creators ever. And I found this document that was kind of like this outline sheet of like things that when they were adapting the anime, she did and she didn't want. And one of the things was her thing of like, allow teenage boys to be teenage boys, but she had like a strict, like underlined like rule of like, please never show Kagome's underwear. Like, please don't like keep her a certain way. She does not have to be angelic pure, but like have some self-control. But she was like, but go all in on the guys, make them fucking gross, you know? And I feel like it's funny because if you read it or you watch it, you know that these guys are fucking gross and you're supposed to be like, you know? And I feel like for someone when you're that age and you're kind of like going through stuff, you feel a little bit seen because I'm sure as both of you know, being a young person, especially when like 10, between the ages of 10 and like even 17, man, what a fucking nightmare that world is, right? And what a nightmare relationships are between like anybody, especially romantically.
And then throw in the internet. And then the pandemic. God. When I tell you because my daughters like obviously can't make friends in real life at the time. So like Discord, and I'm just showing her every Dateline episode about people who die because of this. And I'm like, I don't want to scare you, but if
I don't
you
want to
tell
scare
people
you.
your real name, you will get murdered. And I'm
No.
like, these are 75-year-old men on Discord. There's
Oh.
not one person under 20 on, and I'm just telling her stuff, and she just looks at me like, okay, I'm not. And I'm
Well,
like,
I can't imagine what that must be like, because I remember, you know, people our age being told like, hey, don't trust anything that you read on the internet, and like, don't talk to strangers. And now everyone is talking to strangers.
Exactly. And it's like, how do I tell you that? Like, I only know your daddy because of the internet. Like, I only married.
It's still a little jarring that I know so many people, including myself, that it's like, oh, how'd you end up with your significant other? We met on the internet, you know.
And when you had to keep it a secret before, like, oh, we mutual friends.
Yeah, and now it's just like completely like normalized. I mean, I get that, because you know, I'm not the biggest fan of things like Euphoria. I think it's just a bit much for me. I don't mean to sound like an old man where I'm just like, is that what the kids are into these days? Because I think because, you know, like what we talked about with Bolero, it's like everyone's experiences are subjective. I know that the creator of that show, that's like super personal, and a lot of that stuff like happened to him. But there's almost this kind of like weird fear mongering to it of just like, you cannot enjoy, like, there's no, I've watched both seasons, and there's never just been an episode of just like, these kids are just gonna hang out and do something nice. They're just gonna like hang out and do something fun. By their standard. You know,
she's like, no, I'm gonna write a play about your dad dying and the eulogy you gave. But we're
that is one of the most ridiculous season finales I've ever watched on any TV show. That, like, me and my girlfriend were both. It's been so funny because I know so many people who are like, season 1 is amazing, and I was like, I'm not on that train. And just watching their faces week after week for season 2 of just being like, no, it's still good, it's still good. And then they got to the finale and they were like, oh, this is bad now.
I think the Zendaya standalone episode with Coleman Domingo is probably like the peak of any of the episodes.
Yes.
And I would stand on that even without context. I think it's
it's great.
Solid.
But
overall it is What was that?
I said you could take that episode and you could adapt it into a play and it would be just as good.
Yeah, I'm one of those secret, not secret, unashamed. Malcolm and Marie is like one of my favorite movies, and I do not care.
Really? I've never watched it because I know it's so divisive for people.
There's a lot of things that are like people always bring up the age thing. I've heard a lot, and you know, Zendaya's acting, and for me personally, not even personally, like an age is a big factor of the plot.
Yeah.
So I'm like, of course, why would they cast somebody her age? That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, Sam Levinson's not an idiot. He's doing things very deliberately. Like, I mean, like of all of his works, Assassination Nation is still my favorite. I think that movie fucking rules. And also like a really peak, like almost prophetic, like, oh, this is what the internet can do to people. Like, this is fucking wild. If you haven't seen it yet, it's amazing.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, it's so good. Mel, I'm curious because I'm surprised that I haven't gotten this question yet. What are you both like reading, especially you, Mel? Like, what are you reading right now? Comics or books that you're just like, this shit fucking slaps.
So I've read some recent stuff. So the recent stuff that I've read, but I've been reading a lot of like not recent stuff because I want to catch up on some storylines that I've never read. So part of my year has been spent reading like 300 issues of John Constantine, and because I've never read it, and I'm a huge Swamp Thing fan. And so I've seen, you know, him show up in different Swamp Thing stories, and I'm like, okay, now I want the other sides. And then I started reading the House of M and Annihilation stories. But with current stuff, I've read like everything of John Lee's. I'm a huge fan of John Lee's and horror comics, of course. And Righteous Thirst for Vengeance has been one of my favorite comics that I've read. recently. But yeah, and I know we're going to talk later that John Lees has a new comic out that I just read. But yeah, so I've just been reading a lot of older stuff because I took such a long break from comics. I feel like I have so much that I need to catch up and read and see what happened.
I'm curious, what do you think caused the break? And also, Elle, have you ever had like a strong break with comics before?
Oh, for sure. Right now, I'm quitting. Going
cold turkey.
No, I think you do
after
get
the show.
Yeah. Oh well, maybe right now. Maybe I'll just log off.
Finale, House of Nerds.
Surprise! The Elle era is over. No, I do get burnout. I think from like maybe because I grew up around comics. My dad was a comic book collector, so like maybe from like 2000 like 7ish till like when I graduated from high school, basically, because broke. This was before digital comics were like really big, so I think I leaned more into manga then because you just get more content for your dollar.
Oh yeah.
And then I started to get back into it like around 2010, and then I got back into it this last time heavy in like 2018. And I just remember being like, this is my time to shine in comics. Like, I'm going to read everything. And then the pandemic hit and everything kept getting delayed. And I'm like, I don't even read books anymore. Like, what are you guys? I'm also like a really big like novel reader. And like short stories.
Wasn't there was a novel I think I posted on my story that you were like, that one's so good. Was it Let the Right One In?
Or was it Annihilation?
I think it was Annihilation because my girlfriend started reading it.
Yeah, I have Salamander Hummingbird, his latest book, Jeff Vandermeer. Yes, close enough. And then Eric LaRocca, his short books gross me out. I just got into splatter. Is that what's called splatterpunk? Disgusting. I'm disgusted, but I keep buying them. Like Filthy Loot is a good independent publisher, and then there's another one that I always buy their books because they have the coolest covers, but they're like $10 and it's like really good short horror. And just disgusting. I hate it, but I love it so much.
Mel,
I can recommend a few.
Mel, yes. I also am curious that you said that you work for MovieWeb and your title is Horror Geek Mel. What do you think has been the best horror movies that have come out this year?
Okay, so I actually expected to be let down by this one because of the hype and because I wasn't a huge fan of Sinister, but I loved The Black Phone.
Stop it. I was crying last night. I just watched it. Sobbing.
I was really surprised.
I'm so sensitive.
I thought it was going to be one that I go in and I'm like, okay, that was just like a fun popcorn horror, whatever. And I was like, holy shit, like this is actually really good. So
I'm friends with the writer on that, and he's
such a good guy. Yeah,
just A+ work. I saw it in theaters a couple weeks ago, and me and my girlfriend.
The child actors, phenomenal. Like so
good.
They took all of the tropes from like typical those kind of movies and humanized every single character. And it made me have such a more like raw, like, connection to every single person. And so like, I love that about it. Like it is hard, but it's also Schindler's List level depressing. My kids are not allowed to go outside.
I was just about to say, as a parent, how different does it hit?
You know what? So the scene, not to spoil, it's not a really big spoiler. We know it from the trailer. Like when he drops his groceries, it's so conflicting because on the one hand, I don't want to raise assholes, right? Yeah. So like somebody's in need, you would help them. But I found that in this time and age, I like tell my kids, especially my daughter, because unfortunately, living in the Pacific Northwest, my daughter looks racially ambiguous. And that's another big thing that's going on with missing and murdered women in this area. And so, like, I tell her, you can't help an adult do anything. No. There's nothing that you, a 10-year-old, can do for an adult that they can't do. And I was like, you're like, absolutely not. Like, scream, cry. And also, you're not allowed to go anywhere. Live on Discord. I don't care. You want to play Roblox all day? I don't care. You want to go to internet college? Cool. Like, you're just not allowed to go anywhere.
Internet college.
but that absolutely, like, that scene, it was so conflicting as a parent, because I'm like, I would like, you know, you would help somebody in need, but then it's like, also, you kind of are aware of the situation.
Yeah.
Are those black balloons? I wanted to slap him because I said, you knew better.
Yeah.
You knew better.
I gotta give big props to the man that I even end Bolero's thank you notes with, but I love Ethan Hawke.
I saw that when I was reading it, and I was like, oh, Ethan Hawke.
So
yeah.
It's really funny because I put that in there. I think it was like, and to Ethan Hawke, who in the bathroom told me like everything's gonna be okay. And I've had some people be like, where the fuck did you meet Ethan Hawke in a bathroom?
You're like, don't you know I hang out in bathrooms?
The answer, it's one of my favorite things. So in January 2020, I went to the Sundance Film Festival. I was a volunteer there. And I went by myself. My friend that was always going to and volunteering wasn't able to go that year. So I'm going by myself. And I had made like this family of friends, like total strangers. We're still on a group chat together to this day, who were so sweet. And that was the year that Ethan Hawke was one of the jury members. And so we went to go see, I think we went to see the movie 9 Days, the one with Zazie Beetz. And as everyone's like going into the theater, we kind of noticed like, oh shit, Ethan Hawke is like a row behind us. And we're trying to be cool. We're just like, oh yeah, just don't look at him, whatever. And so before the movie starts, I go to use the bathroom, and it's a very small one, and a line is forming. And so I turn around, and Ethan Hawke is in line. And once again, people in front of him are just trying to be chill, and they're like, I'm just not even going to acknowledge his existence, kind of a thing. And I was going through like a tragic breakup and like heavy personal hardship at the time. And I was rewatching the Before trilogy a lot. And so as I'm about to leave the bathroom, I was just like, fuck it. And I look at him and I'm just like, hey, I just want you to know, like, I'm a huge fan and I'm going through a really hard time right now. And the Before trilogy means like the world to me and the work that you do. And he puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, thank you for saying that. He goes, but I want you to know whatever hard time you're going through, it won't be that way much longer. And I'm like, thank you. And then I'm like sobbing on my way back to my chair. Like, just the sweetest, like, and we bumped into him a couple more times after that. And he is just like the most like open, just super kind man I've ever met in my life, celebrity wise. He's great. And him in Black Phone is like fucking terrifying.
So with that in mind, that he half top mask or bottom mask, let's be real. I would absolutely let him kidnap me with the bottom mask on.
I was gonna say I'm team bottom mask on.
It was doing something for me. I said,
are you a top or a bottom?
Yeah, I need to answer the phone.
I'm going with bottom mask because Ethan, he's got those eyes, he's got those eyes that are like, sure, I'll come with you, like he's so. But Mel, I'm curious, what other horror do you think? Because I would say generally this has been a pretty good year.
Yeah. So there's X. I've also been kind of disappointed by a few, and I'll say Scream.
Really? I'm gonna throw that fucking wild card in there. I really loved Scream. I
wanted to. Oh, so it's like the total opposite.
Total opposite.
I
X not overhyped for me.
Yeah, I think that Scream, man, I really wanted to love it, and then I was really sad when I didn't. But I will always watch every single Scream that ever comes out, even if I didn't like the last one. I'm one of the rare people who actually did not like 4.
Really?
Yeah, and everybody loves 4. I know, and I need to revisit it. Probably it's been a few years, but I just did not like it. But of course, I'm going to go back for for 5, and I'm going to go back for 6 and
Yes.
15 and whatever. I'm going to keep coming. But
this is a family show.
What
I said the C word.
I'm curious, what about X did it for you personally that maybe I'm missing? Because for me, my biggest issue with X was that I know a lot of people and a lot of critics were like, it's the freshest thing to hit slashers. I watched it and I was like, Homeboy is looking through a peephole like, what's on that side? I'm like, yeah, okay. Because like for me, the movie, once the kills started to happen, I like mentally checked out. I was just kind of like, okay, but I'm really excited to see Pearl.
Yeah, I mean, and it's the same thing, right? Like you're like, okay, I'm gonna keep coming back though. Okay. But yeah, I think that, I was actually going to mention another movie because Elle, I know how much ever since I found out that you watched Schindler's List in bed on your phone at 2 o'clock in the morning.
What a cinematic experience.
It's the comfort watch. Oh yeah, Sophie's Choice.
At 3 o'clock in the morning.
Even better.
And I show it to my daughter and I'm like, know that I picked you. So she feels obligated to take care of me later on in life.
Oh my God.
So I've been actually meaning to recommend a film, but it's called My Heart Can't Beat Unless You Tell It To. And I watched it, I think for Tribeca when I covered Us Press during the pandemic. So it's just now starting to come out. I think it's out for the masses now because, COVID
off title alone, I'm going to consume it. I'm a
title
whore.
I love a good title. It's one of the most depressing films I've seen in recent years.
You're feeding
we're getting some goodies.
Yeah. It's about 2 adult siblings who take care of their younger brother who he is technically like a vampire, but they don't say like he's a mythical vampire. Okay. It's to where if he goes out into the sun, like he's going to die. If he doesn't drink blood, he's going to die. And they have to spend their entire life devoted to taking care of him. And it is just so like I needed a shower and I needed Golden Girls after I watched it.
I'm
because
into it.
like I needed, but I've been meaning to mention that because it's just now starting to make the rounds. And for a while it was just, critics only, with film festivals. It was either Sundance or Tribeca, but I think it was Tribeca.
What's the title one more time?
My Heart Can't Beat Unless You Tell It To. But it was so good.
Oh, write that on my tombstone. That's poetic. I liked Fresh this year. No, and I tried.
Fresh
man.
Good.
Okay,
look,
those dance scenes though. Those dance
but that's what
so
made
bad.
It was so good. And listen, so I recommended it to Sergio, and he does not listen to me on movie recommendations because he thinks I have trash taste. But it's because I just like better movies than him. Oh. And so I recommended Fresh, and I was like, don't Google it, don't watch any trailers, just go into it, like, because that's how I watched it. I didn't know anything about it. And then I was like, what the fuck is this? And so I was like, don't do any of that. Like, just go into it. He didn't make it past, like, I think the initial date scene. And he's like, I'm not watching this shit. Like, it's awful, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, give it another shot. Like, you didn't even get to the title card. He's like, why is it so far into the movie? And I'm just like halfway. Because that's when the movie starts.
You should have mentioned that there's a great ass eating scene in it.
Oh, you know what? Though, knowing him, he'd probably be like, oh, like, no. I think I could tell a good ass eating scene. And this, like, Fresh.
For those who haven't seen Fresh, that joke is way funnier when you've seen it.
Fresh is like, it was so good, and I love that it was like, I felt like an idiot, like, and I love that about it. I love that it did that for me. You humbled me, Fresh. Thank you, because I just knew what it was going to be about.
I saw last night Death Proof for the first time. My girlfriend and I were kind of playing Tarantino bingo. We've basically been watching, because my blind spots for him were Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 and Death Proof. And for her only blind spot was Jackie Brown, which is my favorite Tarantino. And man, Death Proof was so close to losing me. And then that last 30 minutes, the minute that they hunt Kurt Russell down, because watching it, I know it's a lot of women's, nearly everyone I've ever met it's their favorite Tarantino. And I get it. Like once I really got to the end, I was like, yep, I get it. I don't know if this was necessarily made for me, but I get who it's for, and I had a very good time by the end. But like that is another one similar to kind of the way that Fresh ends, where it's like you're just kind of like cheering for the last 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, yeah, fuck his ass up. Like it's so.
Oh, or Black Phone. I was, we're gonna cheer.
Oh man, I don't want to spoil it, but just whenever
he's got a killer arm.
Yeah, when it started, because throughout the whole thing, I'm like, none of this is doing anything for the poor kid. Like he's trying this, he's trying, like nothing's happening, like poor guy. And then at the end, when it's just like a game of like mousetrap, pretty much.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Black Phone would make a great like indie survival game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would make for a really, really good, like, just like, not even point and click, just like one of those like stripped bare bones, like you only have a handful of options that you can make.
Or even like a Dark Pictures anthology, if you've played that.
Yeah.
It would make
that would be so good. Me and my girlfriend, we rewatched From Dusk Till Dawn last night, and we regret it.
It doesn't hold up for you?
I think people love the loose memory of From Dusk Till Dawn more than if you rewatch From Dusk Till Dawn, that we had to watch Drag Me to Hell to kind of get like the bad taste out of our mouth, so to speak, because we were like, ugh, this is campy that we don't like, and then Drag Me to Hell is like, yes, more of this, please.
Oh, I love the scene. I'll never get over that. And so then, there's like a subgenre of people who are into that kind of stuff. I'm like, but have you seen Drag Me to Hell?
Oh God, my girlfriend, that part when the old lady without her teeth gnaws on her chin, my girlfriend screamed.
That's not your love language.
No, it's not. No, we're figuring stuff out. But
have you seen the bear? Oh, the bear was so good.
I need to watch the bear.
So good. There's one episode, I think 7, and it's so tense. And Sergio was like, he was telling me, because he watched it first, and he was like, oh, it's so stressful. Like I could barely get through it. And then I watched it.
Barely get through it?
Yeah. I see what you did. And stick to the horny books. No, I'm just kidding. He's like, oh, it's so stressful. And I watched it, and I was like, no, this is how my mind works, like the night before the show, like chaos. There is like, I can't get anything done, and it's a mess. And he's like, that's why I don't like you. Like, you do this. And I said, it absolutely is how I think. I can't, like, I have to do everything all at once. Like, I have to. And so it becomes like a big stressor. And then I'm cussing everybody else out around me. Like, it's a lot. But The Bear was excellent. I'm so glad it got renewed. The cast is phenomenal. And there's like there's like a cast reveal, like a character reveal, like who plays the character later on in the show. And when I tell you, perfect casting. I've never seen casting more perfect than that. I like got chills when we got to that part. I said, oh, this is so good.
This has been a really good year for TV, I feel like, more than film, because it was like getting a fantastic season of Atlanta, and then my favorite season of a TV show this year for Barry. Barry was like groundbreaking for me, watching that unfold. Like,
I haven't gotten past episode 3 of Atlanta.
Oh God, it is so good. This past season especially, there's a lot of episodes that are just like these kind of like almost anthology pieces that are not connected to the main story, that they just work so perfectly on their own. But I mean, even something like and I always forget it came out this year because this year has felt like an eternity, but even like Peacemaker was like a highlight for me of just like, damn,
huge highlight.
Best superhero TV show this year, bar none.
Yes. Severance was really good.
Oh yeah, Severance is really, really good.
I actually really liked, I like courtroom dramas. Like, I'm just such a nerd for them. And The Lincoln Lawyer, speaking of Neve Campbell, she's in it.
Oh, really?
But So I'm not really into like Netflix series for the most part. They're too like overproduced for me sometimes. I need that grittiness. But I watched The Lincoln Lawyer the other night because I was just like needed to veg out because I had a really hard or big like work week, and I binged the entire like 9 episodes from lunchtime to breakfast the next day.
Oh my God.
I could not stop watching it, and I really liked it. So if you're into like courtroom drama stuff, it's actually really good.
A good courtroom drama. And are the Lincoln Lawyer, are those originally books? Because I know there's the McConaughey movie with the same name. Okay.
Yeah. So it's based on the book and then the movie. But yeah, and so this is and it just got renewed, so it's coming out for a second season. But Neve Campbell like totally redeemed herself for me. Screamed to this. I was like, yes, and I actually think it's probably one of the best performances of her whole career was that show. So like I highly recommend it, and I couldn't believe I was so into Netflix.
Wow. I'm gonna have to check that out.
I'm sorry if you hate it, but I really loved it.
How do you guys feel about boats?
Boats?
Boats.
Like as a thing?
Yeah, as a thing, like mega yachts. I secretly
I was like, wait, is this a show? Boats?
Yeah, I secretly watched every single season, every single spinoff, every single reunion of Below Deck. And I don't know why I did that, but I did. And it's like now I know everything about boats, right? So
that was me about the TV show Hoarders a few years ago.
Oh man, you know what? I remember the dark places I was in when I used to binge watch Hoarders and Intervention, and like now I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't watch. There's a new show on Hulu about like nasty house renovations of like really nasty and like crime scenes and stuff, and I'm like, oh, like 30-year-old me would be so into it, but now in the headspace I'm in, it's so fragile. I would go into a depression.
I watched every season of Hoarders during quarantine, and like I said, I was going through a very bad breakup. And the funniest part for watching it for me was that, you know, you'll put on a random episode and like, this is Susan. She's 65 years old and her house looks like the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. And you're like, oh my God. And then it's like, she's got like 7 dead cats in the fridge. And they're doing those testimonials where it's like neighbor, friend, and I'm like, oh my God, that's so fucked up. And then it's like husband, and I'm like, God damn, I can't be in a relationship, but like this fucking person can. What am I doing wrong?
Those kind of shows also give you tips, like My 600-Pound Life. There was
that's my depression show.
Yes,
that's my depression shows.
I can't do the ones where they have like lesions and stuff. I can't do those episodes.
Oh God!
But the generic ones where they're just like you're just not doing
the non-bed sore one.
Yeah, yes. And there was like one lady, and she's like in bed, and she's like deep frying chicken in bed, and I'm like, wait a minute, you could put a deep fryer in your bedroom. What's stopping me from putting my air fryer in my room?
That's just convenience, you know.
Yeah.
That's just working smart. I'm looking for a good new trash show, and I've been disappointed with the ones I keep trying to find. I think the last one that I found was one on HBO. It was like a crime show that was like, oh, here's like some crazy fucking murders. And I think I'm just too desensitized that I was like, are these really that crazy?
Oh, don't you? And I hate to say this about murder because dying by somebody else's hands is not cool. But also, like, I hate it when I know the story and I'm like, what the fuck? You had literally 1 million murders happen this year, and you're gonna keep telling me this one. Dateline did like a thing where they were like, for the summer, they're doing like the final day, and they're like, oh, these are all new stories, never been told. I'm like, I saw this on 2020. I saw this on the first 48.
I saw this on podcasts.
Yeah,
like the same stories.
It's a weird surplus of true crime that we're in right now that I even noticed that like we're kind of having a very soft cultural backlash to it now, because now it's just like, oh, any person thinks that it's like, I'm going to start a true crime podcast about this person I've never met died. Yeah. Do you have any forensic background or investigative background? No. I'm like, well, maybe you should not commentate on this person's personal tragedy, you know?
And I recommend that that episode of South Park where they treat it like porn.
Yes,
Because I'm like, no, and so now, like, lately I've only been like, I pay for like the ultimate tier of Comedy Bang Bang, and that's all I listen to. Comedy Bang Bang and all the spinoffs. Scott Aukerman is like, he would be like, I would say like he's up there with like Stephen King for me personally, of my icons. I love Scott Aukerman.
He's great.
I think his Mojo one-off should have been a regular. That should be a series. It was so good. Bring back Mucus, bring back all of that. I love him so much. And I think I listened to like I think I made myself sick listening to it. I listened to it so much. How Did This Get Made? Because I love Jason Mantzoukas. He's like I would say my Caucasian imaginary partner. And because Idris Elba is, well, I mean, I'm married, so, but you have to have it,
you got your cheat day. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's funny.
So yeah.
The last crime show that I'm really into right now that I know everyone was like, you're just now getting around to it, is Snapped.
Oh, I love Snapped. I watch the show and then I listen to podcasts and it doubles it up, of course. But
I didn't know they had a podcast.
Yeah, they have a podcast and they put them out every Sunday. But then also Killer Couples.
Oh, okay.
Killer Couples. So it's a spinoff of Snapped.
Love it.
Yeah, and so I'm addicted to.
I
can't do it where they act though. Like.
Oh wait, no, because there is one good acting one, Fear Thy Neighbor, which scares me because I'm afraid of people in general. I'm very much agoraphobic. Like I don't go anywhere. And so Fear Thy Neighbor scares the shit out of me because I'm like, I could just look at you wrong and you're going to murder me because we're neighbors, right?
Because we're neighbors.
There's a documentary. I can't remember the name of it. My girlfriend showed it to me this past year. It's one about this guy who, I think it was like in the 70s or something, abducted this girl. He pretended he basically like wove in to be a family friend of this girl, and then he slept with both her mother and her father.
Abducted in plain sight.
Yes. Oh my god, that was stressful.
The one that just came out last week, The Girl in the Picture. How come I started it and I didn't read what it was about, and I started, and as soon as they started talking, I said, this is the stripper bitch. I already know this story. But Netflix put their own like dramatic, stank on it. So it was like, oh, it feels new.
Did you watch the one about the guy that randomly impregnated like a bunch of his clients, and there's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
The entire time as the movie's number goes up, I was like.
And then like when you get your ancestry back, I'm like, oh, I guess I am my dad's daughter,
Oh god.
I questioned that for a little bit.
I need to do that now.
Have you seen 3 Identical Strangers?
I kept meaning to watch that, and then I never did. I read the story though. I looked up the story and I read a lot about it, but I didn't watch the documentary.
The documentary is fantastic, but it is harrowing. It is one of those, like, I'm not a conspiracy theory person ever, but the way that they break things down and the actual facts that they have behind it makes you go like, oh, like it's one of those things that'll make you be like, I'm not adopted, right? Like I know my parents tell me I'm not adopted, but like I'm really not, and there's not like another me wandering around somewhere. Like,
isn't that and that's like the power of media too, because I remember when I was a kid there was an episode of Law and Order where it was twin boys.
Regular Law and Order or SVU?
I can't remember.
Or Criminal Intent.
I've been on a Law and Order SVU rewatch though.
Crime?
I'm on. Well, that's the thing. It's not inherently sexual, but it is sexual. Genetically, they were twins, and the doctor cut off too much, so they made the twin.
I remember that.
Yeah, right. So my older brother, we're only like a few months apart. He's not that much older than me. And so when I was a kid, I remember thinking like, I do have a vagina, but I didn't know what a clitoris was, right? Because my dad raised me. I didn't know anatomy, and so I'm like, am I a boy?
Oh,
and I asked my dad, I said, are me and my Marcus twins? Like, were we born twins? And he was like, no, like he's your older brother. And I'm like, Law and Order said they could cut.
Law and Order said.
It's so weird. You just unlocked the dormant memory of that existing in my brain, because I always remember, because Law and Order reveals are all the same. Because as soon as they have like here's that pivotal, shocking piece of information, that little like string part of the score kicks in. So they'll always like linger on either a reaction shot or like the criminal or like the perp or suspect or something like that. And I just remember the like, oh my gosh, like, look at the medical records. Like, oh my gosh. I always loved, on Law and Order SVU especially, I always loved me a good crazy kid episode. I always love when it's like, here's a child and he's a psychopath. Because they're always just like, damn it, we really want to like punch this kid, but we can't.
Olivia's son has to be. Olivia's son has to be a psycho, right?
And you're like, oh.
I haven't watched that show, and I used to watch it like religiously, and then I even got all the box sets for some dumb reason, and I'd watch them over and over again. But I haven't watched it. Oh my god! And
that's like my soap opera right there, because Elliot's back, and all this stuff is going on. But I just know her son. There's something in his eyes, their eyes, because recently, they've made a revelation that this little boy is, I don't know if he's non-binary or, but they did some kind of a reveal, and I'm just like, what are we doing here? I didn't know how we got here story-wise, right? So I'm just like, because most of the episodes don't even show him at all, and then all of a sudden we have this episode where I'm like, what is going on right now? Not in like a bad way, just like narratively, how did we get here? And but he's like, so there's something about him. There's something about him. Yes. There's something about him. And I'm like, if he's not the next big serial killer, like he has to be the next killer kid. Because how cool would that be? And he kills, like, what if he's like killing Elliot's family, Wow.
I always forget that Elliot's family has like this. Do you remember that episode when it's revealed that like wasn't it Elliot's daughter is like going off the fucking rails?
Yeah.
Then he confronts his mom because his mom has like an undiagnosed mental illness. I just remember that because it's like a really great scene because they're on the beach, because she has like a beachfront house and she's just like deflecting it, and it's probably a really good Christopher Maloney performance, because he's just like, stop ignoring me, like this is why we never had a relationship. And I remember watching that at like 13 and being like, this is peak television, nothing will be better.
Man, and it's so crazy now, like on his show now, I feel like he's like trying to bring like his like Oz HBO intensity to Elliot, and I'm like, well, rein it in a little bit, chill, because like he went from being like a sex crime detective, like a homicide detective, sex crime, and now he's like this international mafia takedowner guy. Yeah, like and then what's so crazy, in like the first episode back is actually Catherine, his wife, gets exploded in a car. And that's just how they kick things off. And I'm like, but what did he go to Italy to do? Like, he got recruited to go to Italy from sex crimes?
They really I don't know if they really I was about to say they Grey's Anatomy her. I don't know if so like when I was growing up, did either of you watch Grey's Anatomy?
I watched it forever also.
I binge watched it during the pandemic.
So when I was a kid, I have my mom and I have my older sister, and my mom raised us without cable. We had like rabbit antenna ears, but for the most part, we just had like a bunch of VHSs and stuff. And so when we eventually like got the rabbit ears, you only get like 10 channels, and ABC is one of them. And we only had one TV, and it came on Sunday nights when I just wanted to watch The Simpsons. And you have a mom and a sister, you're outvoted. So it's like, well, I guess I'm watching Grey's Anatomy because it's better than nothing or a book. And I remember there's that plot line with the bomb.
Yes.
And then at the very end of the episode, like the dude's just carrying it away in the hallway and he just fucking explodes.
Yeah.
And I remember my mom and my sister both looked at me and they're like, we're not watching this anymore. They were just like, this is a jump the shark moment.
I stopped watching when just everybody in that hospital either died or their close family member just started dying. And I can't remember which one it was that I just went, I'm just done, because I'm just like, nobody, like, I would feel cursed if I worked in this hospital
Plane
and I
crashes,
saw that everybody,
just all
cancer,
kinds of
plane crashes, a brain aneurysm, like there's just a shooter in the hospital, the bomb, like
don't
many
forget when
things. I'd be
Sandra
like, get
got
out.
stabbed by an icicle.
Yes, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a great.
it would just
It's
feel
amazing.
Like, I had hopes for it because I had only heard like people like rave about it for so long, and I did like Private Practice. I actually watched Private Practice before I watched Grey's Anatomy.
Is that the Katherine Heigl spinoff?
That's
No, what is her
Taye
name?
Diggs and
Right.
Yeah.
What's the main?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I have her name in my head, but I can't think of it. But yeah, and I did like that one. But I know for me it was, what's his name, George? The season 1, the bus.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hated him so much. I know people controversial loved him. I hated him. Like, if he had died episode 1, scene 1, I would have been okay. But the fact that they drug it out and then it was like supposed to be this big emotional like climax to the series, and then I got there and I'm like, good.
I hope
I was
people that
so
watch
sad
your
on that
show
one.
know that like this started off as a comic book discussion.
Oh,
and now we're talking about Grey's Anatomy.
Oh wait, after Grey's, I binge watched ER, and I said, wow, whole lot of like AIDS and HIV going on in this one little area. And then I think I said I'm done when they had like those.
Did you get to the Tarantino directed episode though?
Which one was that?
Oh God, I'm trying to remember which one because it's like notoriously known as like one of the worst episodes.
I know for me, when Dr. Green had the brain tumor thing and he was like in Hawaii or something and they had like those weird dream sequences, I said, how did we stray so far from the inner city hospital that we are now watching this man die slowly on the beach?
Every TV show needs to just be 4 seasons and then you're done. If you even get to 4, you should probably only get like 3.
Yeah.
End on a high note, because those things.
I really like limited series because of that. Like, I know it's going to be like wrapped up. I know it's going to be on their terms. It's not going to be a cliffhanger cancellation. I like that.
But trash TV, I need it to be long. Yeah, and she was like debating moving away from Seattle at one point, and I'm like, okay, then what's the show gonna like? You are the show.
Oh my
God.
God.
I'm like, I know you're not going anywhere. I know when Alex left, that's when I stopped watching it current. Like, I was like, I'm done. Do you know he left to go to be back with Katherine Heigl?
Yeah.
Who abandoned him. And then he leaves his wife on the show random because he was leaving the show in real life. So they had to write him off. And they wrote him off by him finding a letter from Katherine Heigl and him abandoning his wife now to go be with Katherine Heigl. And I said, now, how does that make sense? You should have just killed him. Just kill him like you do everybody else.
Allow me to loop this back around to comics. I'm curious for both of you. Same rule of, you only get X amount of seasons. What would you say, like, if you were running like Marvel DC and you bring on a writer to write like Batman, Spider-Man, whatever, and you say you only have this many issues, that's all you're getting, that's your run, you're not going to overstay your welcome. What's the number?
Oh man, that's hard because because there are some series that I read and I'm like, God, like 6 was like a perfect amount. But then I'm like 300 issues into Constantine, so I'm like, I need to I can't wait to read the next 150, and like I wish it wouldn't stop there, and so it's hard. But I do kind of like self-contained also stories. Your story was a perfect example of that. And to where I knew that, everything she was going through, because just to kind of bring it back, just so Sergio doesn't fire all of us, but just to bring it back for a second, one thing I really liked about yours is someone who spent her younger 20s drunk and self-sabotaging myself at every corner, she was very relatable, and a little too relatable at times that it made me uncomfortable. But I mean, in a good way, as a compliment. And so, but I really like knowing that everything that she's going through, it's going to be resolved, and that I'm going to get that resolution because I needed it with that character. Because it just kind of hit too close to home. But then I have other characters like John Constantine, who I'm just like, God, like, let's just see what craziness we're going to keep doing, because I don't need that same resolution with a character like that. And just to kind of bring back also with yours, I meant to say this way earlier and I didn't. One thing that, and I know this is a family show and that it's in the morning here, but one thing that I found that I've never seen in another comic, or I don't know, maybe even medium, is this sad cum. And it's like, I read that and I'm like, oh my God, like, it's just like, nobody ever talks about that, because it's such a reality that you're like, let me look up some old pictures or whatever, or you're in a sad place and you're like, let me do this to get my mind off things. And then you're just like, oh my God, like that is just way worse now. And now I hate myself. So
I'm so glad you appreciate that, because that was like a 9th hour. We were just working on it and we were lettering it, and it was 3 a.m. and we were delirious and we had to turn it in soon. And normally there's a lot of things in Bolero that if there's a bit that made you laugh, that was probably not in the original script. It only came about in post-production. And with Sad Cum, I'm just sitting there and I'm exhausted and we're looking at the page and we're lettering it. And then I look at him and I'm like, yep, it's a sad cum. And he chuckles and he goes, do you want to throw that in there? And I said, fuck it, why not? Like, it's the same way with the keep your secrets joke from issue 3.
Yeah.
Like, I appreciate you saying that. I always say that Devin has horror movie sex rules because every time she does, something bad happens.
Yes. Very true. Very true. Yeah, I read that and I was just like, God, like, that's probably the most relatable moment in this entire series that nobody ever talks about because it's, it's taboo.
You haven't lived until you've had it.
Exactly.
Or maybe you're only living because of it.
And not like what you've seen.
Then I just had to go back towards the end, that parent scene, that really resonated with me because I actually found a tape of my parents when I was a kid having sexual intercourse.
Oh no!
And it was professionally produced, and there was a copyright
professionally
at the end of it. It was like a interracial thing, and at the end, my brother and we fast forwarded because I said, "What the fuck is this?" And that movie Stand and Deliver?
Yeah.
It was called Lay and Deliver.
No.
And there was a copyright year and everything, and it said 1988. And I'm like, oh my God, I was conceived in 1988. I was born in 1989. Did I see myself being made?
That's
right
like that's the tape from the fucking Ring right there. Like,
oh yeah,
that is such a cursed object.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Even it's very funny too, the parent thing. The family stuff was also a super late game edition. I actually wrote that into issue 5, and then I retroactively rewrote everything before that, because I remember I gave my friends the scripts and they would read them as I was finishing them. And then when I added the parent stuff in issue 5, that got such a strong emotional reaction from people that I was like, all right, I'm going to leave, which is funny because I have a great relationship with my mom. Relationship. And so I always wonder if people are like, man, this guy really fucking hates his mom, doesn't he? And I'm like,
so thank you for loving your mom enough to write about a character who doesn't, because I related with that so hard because my dad was always the one to be like the facilitator, like the, like the level-headed one, like the one who understood me. And then my mom was just, you're a bitch, but also mentally ill. So, and that's another thing when you can, especially when you get to a certain age and it's like, you could recognize the illness in your parent and why their motivations, why they did or acted how they did. And I think I really like that about Bolero too, because it is like a lot of self-reflection has to happen before the end scene with them in the hospital. Not the end scene, but you know, the and I was just like, it's because it's, and you know, families, man.
Yep. Well, I mean, like that. I think a part of it too. I have a friend of mine that he's a writer, and he lost his mom to cancer, and he loved his mom very much. They had a great relationship, and he's mentioned to me before that when he's written some of his short stories or novels, he noticed that he writes really mean mother figures and bad moms, and we were talking about that, and we were like, why do you think that is? And I think the closest we came to is that having a good one is so sacred to us that like the idea, like even entertaining the idea of like, what would it be like if this one parent who was like the best person in the world, the most formative person in the world, was awful for me, you know? Because then I remember I read somewhere that James Gunn said something similar, because almost all of his work, you know, is about like fucked up familial dynamics. And he loves both of his parents, you know, he's like, yeah, my parents are great. Like, and so it's, I think writing from the place of like, you have to tap into a fear of like, well, if I didn't have this, what would that be like? And I mean, like, I've seen my mom and my sister have like, they're both Leos, so I've seen them have their kind of like episodes of clashes of sorts, and you know, even seeing something like, you know, in that hospital scene where there's the, you know, I thought that we would have like this rekindling, and you would say, I'm sorry, why did I hurt you? Yes, well, you should have told me, is one of those like parental, like, even if they don't mean it in a bad way, like they're not trying to hurt you by saying that, it's still one of those like, fuck dude, take accountability. Like,
it's so toxic.
Man, and that's why Sayonara, Ari, listen. So you guys are not going to read it. Stop acting like I'm spoiling stuff. So let me tell you, when it got to the reveal that was like, oh no, your mom was a bitch. Why did you cut the movie this way? I felt that so hard, because I know that when you grow up with one parent, right, you're gonna romanticize all of their good qualities, because the parent who wasn't there is automatically, you know, the villain in the story. So why would I want you, the bad parent, to tell me anything about the good parent, right? So there's like that dynamic at play too. And so when I read Sayonara, I was like, listen, Wyatt, you just be wanting people to be sad all the time. Because I read it and I was like, it's true, because I know obviously my dad wasn't a perfect person. But for my mom, who wasn't there, to be like, don't say nothing critical of my dad. He could have like drowned you in front of us, and that would be like he was giving you a bath, like he was washing your hair. Like, don't talk about my dad like that. And so even with like with Bolero, it's like we know Devin to an extent is unreliable.
Yes.
And so like what she's giving us is not, and I think I love those pages where it was like really soft watercolor with Devin and her dad, because it's such a direct contrast to like the rest of the book. And even in that last issue, like it's jarring, because things did start simple and it got out of control, and so good.
No one is born that way, and that's why, you know, that's why I said earlier, my thing with the book is that I want people to engage with their empathy, to understand that, like, you know, no one comes, you know, well, a normal person, I know we've been talking about like serial killers and shit, but like no normal person comes out of the gate just like, I was born an asshole, you know, or with this misplaced sense of anger or sadness. Like it is super formative that it comes from our parents. And it's also like to deny that acknowledgement, especially going, you know, with broader comics, it's like, why is Spider-Man the way he is? It's because of Uncle Ben. Why is Superman the way that he is? It's because he has two loving parents, you know, like it is inherent to these kinds of things. And I feel like if I didn't address those kinds of things, it would have made the character feel much more needlessly, like you said, just unreliable, because it's like, yeah, you know, it's that funny thing earlier when we were talking about, you know, your friend who called Devin a narcissistic bitch, and I said, what's his relationship?
Oh, whoa. We don't have to say friend, just acquaintance. An internet acquaintance.
Because it's like every time I'm hanging out with like a friend and they're like, oh yeah, my boyfriend is like a real asshole, or like my ex was like a real giant asshole, my first question is, what was his relationship with his dad like? And I'm not trying to be mean either. I'm like legitimately like, what was that like? Because I think like you have to, and it's not to cut them slack. Mm-hmm. I think you're allowed to understand who a person, you know, kind of like what you said about the book, of just like, you're allowed to understand who a person is from a third party perspective, mm-hmm. and go, well, no one is 100% good. No one is 100% bad. I mean, like, I know a lot of people really love the issue 4 because we're talking from Nat's perspective, but like, she's not perfect either. Mm-hmm. Like, even, you know, her acknowledging like, I have spiteful thoughts about Devin and the relationship with her family, you know, like that's mm-hmm. pretty fucked. Like,
and it's the way that I took Devin on very early. So even when Nat, people were like feeling Nat was slighted, I was like, who cares? Devin is in an emotionally fragile place right now. So if Nat could just chill for 5 minutes, you're like, she just loves her.
You're Henry Winkler from Parks and Rec, where it's just like, I believe you and you've done nothing wrong.
Yes. I was like, Devin is a sweet baby angel. She does not know what she's doing right now.
My heart goes out to that girl. And as I said in my afterwards, I do think she got better. I do think by the end of it, she's a much more put together person. However, I will say this, I know a lot of people really enjoy the ending with like that other Devin that she spoke to and how she seemingly like, you know, went down the better path. But something I always kind of like put in people's heads, because it is something that I did think about actively, is that is that version of Devin a better person because she was always meant to be that person in that universe? Or was she scared shitless by what she saw and is like, I will do everything so I don't end up that person? Because it's kind of a catch-22 of that's not, you can't exist in both ways, you know?
And that's a learned behavior too. Like even with your parents, going back to that, like you see the mistakes that they made, so you kind of overcorrect. Like just even for me with my kids, like my dad was super chill. He died when I was 14. We got adopted. My adoptive parents were shit. And so I feel myself not being as cool as my dad was, because my dad was like super chill, like Southern California chill, like no rules. And then it was super strict in our second household. And so with my own kids, I'm just like trying to find that, you know, that line of like, you know, what is me being a good parent, or my idea of a good parent. And it's just like that quote, which I don't think is a real quote, but it's like, I'm not a good mom, I'm a cool mom, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think even going beyond that, I think more than like cool mom or I think it's like you're present, you know?
Yeah.
Which is that's all I think the baseline that you could hope for. Like, you know, I don't have kids, but I'm glad that my mom was present, you know, because it is that absence and that, you know, seeming, you know, it's similar to Devin and her mom. Nothing is worse. I think being told by your parent, like, I don't want you, is one thing that makes you go, okay, cool, I've heard it. Go fuck yourself. I think when a parent is like, I'm indifferent to you, is what really like completely like makes you go like, oh fuck, what is my self-worth? Like, who am I? Who do I have to prove to a bunch of people? Like, it's fucked. Also, I'm an idiot who didn't bring their charger, so I'm on 1% battery, and I know.
And Wyatt, it's been very real.
Just tell your readers, or tell your viewers and everything. Call your parents. You don't have to thank them. You don't have to, just, you know, check in with them if you've got a good relationship with them, and if not, it wasn't your fault.
And you know what, a better way to wrap it up. What a better way.
It was awesome talking to you.
Thank
Likewise,
you for coming
I hope you guys have
on.
a great rest of your day, and thank you for having me on. I know we went all over the place.
Oh
but
no, I
it
would
was so
love to
much
have
fun.
you on again when the new project.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Or whenever. Because
yeah,
you know,
no,
we're
I'm down
loosey
for
goosey
whenever.
here, so
I'm down for whenever. So thank you so much for having me on, guys. It was great talking to both of you.
Bye.
See ya.
Have a good Sunday.
you
I
know
love
what?
him.
I as well, and also I shout out to the no charger because I'm the worst at wrapping things up, and so
We were gonna be here like at 4.
and no, that went very well. I enjoyed that a lot because you know I was like
great.
stressed out. Hold on. Uh-oh. Well, you want to talk for a second? I'm trying to find Oscar. We're about to have Oscar on. Oscar, I'm DMing you the StreamYard link right now. Mel, I was wondering what you were doing down there. I said, is she aroused? She's squirming.
Well, I caught myself like in the corner of my eye because I was watching, you two as you're talking, and then I caught myself and I'm like moving kind of weird, like with my hands, but my cat is like doing like the the crazy 8s around my ankles. And if I don't give her attention, she's about to get like loud. And so I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I'm petting her until she, got enough of me and went away.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I had to say something really quick so that there was no assumptions made.
Interesting. Well, interesting the things we say when we're on. You're like, but you're not on camera. I saw it in the chats, and then I looked, and because I didn't notice it, and then I said, "What's she doing?"
Yeah.
Right.
I was like, if I don't do this, she's gonna make a little ruckus. So okay, here she needs attention.
Oscar,
hey guys, how's it going?
Hi,
Oscar. You have a project. Oscar. Oscar, I'm not a people person here. You have a project that you were working on and your Substack.
Yeah, I wanted to share with you, and yeah, I also send you. Well, what I wanted to do with my Substack is I'm currently going to Comic-Con in this week, so I created my own comic book that I share with you. It was like kind of a passion project of mine to write a comic book, so I thought it was a great idea to promote my own work with my own comic, and I created it, and I'm also giving it away during Comic-Con. So I'm hoping to meet some people there, meet the creators, that they can see what I'm working in, and that it brings some people to my page and help grow the community.
And I did get a chance to read this, and I think it's really cool, like for marketing, like promoting your Substack and everything. I thought that this was a really cool something that I would remember if I was handed it.
Yeah, I think it's cool because it's just to promote my page, but it also serves as a way to tell my story. So it's not just about my page; it's knowing me, my love for comic books, and also I think it can make some people relate to it. Maybe they want to do something like this. They want to share their content. They want to talk about books, but they don't know how. So it's a way to show people that if I could do it, then maybe the next guy can do it and can do something better. So yeah, it's kind of a way of me opening up to the community so they can know me a bit better.
Oh,
is this your first time going to Comic-Con?
No, I've been there a couple of times in the past, but it's my first time promoting something. So yeah, it's kind of you always do your schedule for Comic-Con. You have your plans and attend to stuff. And this time, one of my plans is to go to the creators and share my work.
Very cool. Very cool.
How long is that flight for you?
It's I think it was like 8-9 hours. I'm currently in LA, and then I'm going to drive to San Diego, so it's a couple more hours there. Yeah.
Very cool. And was there anything else? This is your Substack. There's a lot of content on here too. We've been following you, I think, since you first started it. Was last year?
Yeah, it was in October. I was actually following the batch of creators that started with the whole Substack movement, and then I created my page. I like this platform because it's kind of simple. It looks good. It's really it doesn't have much design, but it kind of looks professional. So I like it. And yeah, I've created content of, I think it's what I like. Like I read a comic book, I like the comic book, it resonates with me. I try to write something about it, about why is it great, why it's so try to spread the positive energy in what I read. So that's kind of my goal. I'm also writing reviews for another page, and I think what's important is to, if you read something and it resonates with you, it makes you feel good, and then you share it with the community, and maybe someone else will read it and it will feel great for them too. And yeah, it's kind of spreading the positivity.
Very cool. I'm gonna check this out after the show, because and then see what you do through Comic-Con. So it's gonna be a fun Comic-Con. I wish I was going in person.
It's gonna be cool. And I'm also going to publish the comic book in my Substack for those who aren't going, so they can check it out. And yeah, I'm excited because making this comic book, it was really hard. It's a lot of effort, a lot of coordination, but I think that I found out it was possible to create my own comic book, and I've had this idea of writing comics for a long time. So with this one, it's like the step. I finally did it, even if it's like a marketing comic book, but I want to create more, and I'm going to use my Substack page to continue publishing my work, my written work, and future comic books for the rest of the year.
Very cool. Hope you have a great Comic-Con.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'll be covering it. For my publication, I'll be covering it, and I don't sleep. I cover from home, and I don't sleep for a week. So I can't imagine the energy of being there.
Because, no, it's a lot of energy. I'm really hyped right now, but then following week, it's a big effort to be there and to do all the stuff you want to do. It's a lot of pressure, and yeah, but it's a fun time. It's great for us.
Very cool.
All right. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think that's it. That drops it up. If anyone in there is going to comic book, yeah, you can find me, and I have my comic. I also have some fun like swag, lanyards, pins that have the logo. This shirt.
I love your logo. Yeah. I love the orange and
yeah. So I'm giving away some stuff to help promote the page and also get to know more people, more creators, because that's the whole point of it, to make the community bigger.
I love cons and film festivals where, you're around so many creatives and just the vibes. And after you leave, you just want to like make all the things and connect with everybody. And it's such a fun high to be on. So hopefully you
exactly.
get that.
I remember it was after Comic-Con that I wanted to create my page. I wanted to create comics. I wanted to write about them. It's really boosts the person, because it shows you how many people are working on it, how much they are doing, and I want to create something, just like all the people I see there.
Yes. Can't wait to see what you do.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Thanks, Oscar, and thank you for waiting.
That's okay. Thank you guys for
we had to discuss Grey's Anatomy for 2 hours.
No, it was fun. It was fun to hear. Bye, guys.
Bye. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe Comic-Con's already here. It's crazy.
And you know what's so funny is like I'm I'm like the opposite in like when it comes to like cons. I'm very much muting it because it's so overwhelming, like the sheer amount of like posts and stuff constantly coming in that I feel like it's too much almost for me.
Yeah.
And so I just don't engage until afterwards. I'm like, just hit me with like at the end of the day all of the major news in a list.
Yeah, I mean, like we will cover, you know, during Comic-Con, we'll cover, oh my gosh, you know, 14, 18 posts in a day. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, we didn't cover anything, I feel like. And so literally like next week or during Comic-Con, like do not expect me to reply back to anything in a timely manner because, you know, between the two publications is just going to be chaos. So but I love it, and I kind of get off on it a little bit.
But you know what? From if it was something that was like from home, and I'm covering it as the news is being broke from official sources, I feel like that's reasonable, that's manageable. But to be in the midst of it and covering it, I couldn't even imagine the overload sensory wise.
You know, whenever I go to South by, I hit South by as press every year for my publication. And when I do that and I'm there, like I'm so busy taking everything in and trying to find my way to the next thing that I look at my phone and you know, on Twitter and I'm like, oh my God, like there's all this stuff I'm not reporting on because I'm like catching Ubers and walking 12 miles and, you know, doing all of these things. And so I can't imagine Comic-Con. I will be there one day in person. But when I do, I'm going to have like a battle plan and
it's
a team.
Just San Diego in the middle of July is just not a vibe for me.
Yeah.
I don't like to be hot. If it was
I'm in Dallas,
Francisco,
so it's not really a thing for me. We're like 109 right now. So
I think today is the coolest it's been for a minute out here, which is just not to say much considering you guys' temperatures. Like our high today is 70, but this is the lowest it's been in like a week. It's been in the 80s, and for Washington, that's disgusting because there's no central air. I just have like 3 fans blowing on me at all times. My lips are dry, my face is dry. My body cracks when I move.
I went to PAX West and it's in Seattle. So I'll stay in downtown. I had a rented apartment and I walk in because it was pretty hot. It was like 90. It was just really hot. And I walked in, it's right there on the water and everything. And it was so hot because of the no central air. So
just muggy. And then it's like a wet heat. And then it's just a depressing. And then it's like, it doesn't help that it's overcast too. Because people be like, oh, you guys have cloud coverage. I'm like, what does that mean? It's still hot. It's still hot.
No, it was like unbearable.
We do a quick little weekend review.
Okay.
2 hours in. I only have 2 books to talk about this week. So
that's all I wanted to talk about, really. I've been reading old stuff, old Marvel stuff. So this is the only new title I've read in a week or so.
Dig. And I got the digital, but I haven't read it yet. Would you say you would have to have read Sync?
Okay, so technically, no. It can be very much a standalone. So this takes place after 9 and 10, and then 11 number. So I actually have 10 Sync here, which is one of my all-time favorite covers ever. And so I love this, and this issue is just amazing. But yeah, so this is issue 10, and so Dig takes on one of the best characters in the entire comic series, which is Mr. Dig, and he is a man who wears this fox mask and he has a shovel, but this is his origin story. So this is the issue because he's been such an amazing character, and he protects people because they all live in this town that is just kind of overran. And so he has become like a protector of the people. And this is his origin story, but also it introduces a new villain that we haven't seen in this universe yet, who is like absolutely terrifying. So you don't need to, but I think to be invested in what you're reading because you want to love this character so much, I think it's good to go back and read.
Is that a little butt crack right there? Just noticed that.
Where?
Should I have censored it? The bottom left.
Oh, plumber's crack.
Not only are you getting beat up, but half your ass out.
Yeah. But yeah, I loved it. I've been looking forward to this. I backed it on Kickstarter. I got up like at 6 o'clock in the morning to back this on Kickstarter. And I was like, please don't let me down, because Dig is just my thing now. He's like my comic husband right now. And so I'm like, please. And it did not let me down. It was so good.
And for like Kickstarters, one of the things that I enjoy because of not nepotism, but narcissism, is when they have a thank you page. I just like seeing my name printed and stuff.
Yeah, same.
So I saw everybody. I see y'all. I saw Joe. I saw you.
Yay.
I go by my full name in there. So
yes,
that's cool. And you're a big fan of Sync too as well.
Yes,
I didn't realize it was so many issues.
Yeah, I have a big print on my wall, signed by the artist. I have a couple of the physicals, and then this, and I have a Dig T-shirt, and
like Dick.
Yeah, I have a Dick T-shirt. But yeah, and so I'm a huge fan. I just think this is one of the best series I have read. So
the character design is like, that's what made me, well, that, and like I like John Lee's work. I just had never gotten in on a Kickstarter. And so this was like, I just like the design, so that's why I backed it.
Yeah, Alex Cormack. Oh my God. I went back and read some of the older comics that he also did artwork on. And the dude is just so freaking talented. Like, he needs to be just one of the top comic book artists. I love his work. Yeah. I think he's just brilliant. So yeah, I highly recommend this if you're into, like vigilante or horror comics at all. But Sync is amazing. I can't say enough good things.
Okay, and then you said you've been reading some John Conn.
Well, actually, I switched to Marvel. So after seeing Doctor Strange, I wanted to go back and read the issues that like WandaVision and stuff were inspired by, the House of M. And so I went back and started reading all of those. And then I went into Annihilation, and I'm kind of getting into some Marvel space hero stuff. And so that's been a really fun read. And so I've just kind of been, I needed to take a break. And so
did you enjoy Doctor Strange?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Okay, we can move on. I don't know. I guess I was so hyped. It was
Sam Raimi.
I was so excited for it. And then I watched it. I just feel like but maybe because I haven't been into this phase 4 much. I watched what was phase 3? The last movie I saw for real was Endgame. I think I've seen Shang-Chi. I fell asleep during it. And Multiverse of Madness. Oh, I did watch WandaVision. Loved WandaVision.
Love it.
I watched one episode of Loki. I
like Loki.
2 episodes of Moon Knight. I'm not gonna lie, I was one of those people hyping it up online, and then I just didn't watch it.
I do that with things, and I'm like, why do I do this? There was a show we mentioned earlier. What was it? I can't remember now. And I have been hyping it up, and I just didn't watch it. So
I just, you know what? It's okay. It was mostly for Oscar Isaac for Daddy Eyes. So it is what it is. I just felt like in the grand scheme of things, I felt like it was a throwaway. Like, we already know she's upset about her kids or not kids. And I just felt like, why are we doing this again? Like, I felt like WandaVision had a satisfactory enough vibe to it that I didn't feel like we need to keep doing this. Unless you were going to go full House of M. House of M is one of my favorite Marvel arcs. And so if they were going to go like full on, then I would have been like, oh, this is sick. But I don't know. I was just kind of tired of her talking about them little boys. I was over it. I'm like, they don't even like you. Oh, they're little alien babies. They're not even aliens. Like, girl, she's just stressing me out. At this point, I'm like, at this point, you need to check in. You need to check into a clinic and get it together because you're beyond help at this point.
Yeah, I liked it. I'm a huge fan of Sam Raimi, and I liked watching it, and I kept going, oh my God, that's so Sam Raimi. Oh my God, that's so Sam Raimi. Like all of his shots that he is really known for. And then he did a lot of Evil Dead, tributes in it. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so Evil Dead. And so I kind of think that the horror fan in me just kind of came out. I don't think that I can look at it objectively as just a Marvel fan, because I was so excited about the horror element and the Raimi Evil Dead elements coming in. So to be fair,
and I think that's where I messed up, because I know that Raimi is a little campy, and a lot of it. And so, but I went into it with people who I know aren't into horror saying like, oh, this is the best horror movie. So for me, I was expecting like scary horror, because people who don't know necessarily, Raimi's work and stuff. If somebody from the jump was just like, this is like a Sam Raimi movie, then I probably would have had different expectations. But I went into it thinking like, oh, this is like a proper horror movie. And then I'm watching it and I'm like, yes, this is a Sam Raimi movie. Yes, this is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I think I think the shots were cool. I think visually it was a cool movie, but like America and Wanda, and I was just like tired of everybody. I was like, what are you guys even doing? Like, what are we doing here? It felt like such like a ragtag, like, and not in a fun way. Even the Illuminati, I was just like, I guess it had been spoiled so many times that I was just like, I don't even care anymore. I don't even care anymore.
The one character that I just didn't care for throughout the whole thing is Christine. Every version of her, I didn't care. So, but I know she's part of the strange story, but
even the reveal, like the post credits, the mid one, even that was, I was just like, I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm tired.
You're done.
I'm tired.
You're ready to go.
And it's like, and people keep talking about Marvel fatigue. I'm like, when I tell you, if I catch it, I catch it at this point. I don't actively seek out, like, I know like the Black Panther 2 and all this, and people are like very excited about it, and I'm just like, I just want to see Robert Pattinson be Batman again. I'm cool. I just
oh my
give me the emo. I just don't. I'm tired of it's because the formulaic nature of it. I'm like, it's just gonna, I've like Captain Marvel, I probably will never watch. I just could not have less interest.
So I would think, I think for me, the first two Thor movies, Iron Man 2 and Captain Marvel, are kind of on the bottom for me.
Those could all be the same movie, and I would believe you.
Yeah, I just kind of didn't care. But I also don't have Marvel fatigue. I am one of those crazies where I'm just like, bring it. But I also want more DC stuff. And so like, I want the Penguin show based off of Batman, because Batman was so freaking good. I binged Peacemaker, and then I listened to the soundtrack for hours because I loved it so much. And so, yeah, but I mean, right now there's just so much media to consume.
I'm a major DC apologist. I will ride for them and I will gaslight people into thinking that they're wrong. Like, no, what do you mean you didn't like Suicide Squad? Like,
okay, so I want you to have me back on an episode, and I just, the whole time, I just want you to gaslight me into loving Batman versus Superman, because I just did not.
Wait a minute,
wanted to leave the theater.
But the workout scene
so bad.
But the workout scene is enough. I mean, who cares? When Bat Daddy's crawling on the ceiling at the beginning, that didn't get you. I said you can drop on me. So I read a couple books this week. I didn't read that many, and I kind of figured we would be going long. So New Think number 2 was really good this week. About and each issue is a different creative team, and it's just like it's about the storyteller. It kind of touches on censorship, public shaming, glass houses, culture, media, how it is today, but using like classical imagery to kind of reflect on that. And, you know, for freedom of speech, but only if it's nice to you. That's kind of what the king in this is getting at. Like, oh, like you want to talk about me, then everybody's going to see you. Every bad thought, every good thought. And it kind of backfires on him. And so it's a cautionary tale, but I think it was 100% less preachy than the first issue. The first issue was more about technology, this could be about technology, which I'm sure it is, but the first issue was more straight, like head on about it, and it was just super preachy. But this one managed to get the point across without it being like, here's another cautionary, like be afraid of how, like, no, like it's very straightforward but done very well.
Gotcha. I love AWA. I need to check it out.
Yes. And I love an anthology. It's just when you market something as being Black Mirror-esque, you have to bring that level of indulgence when it comes to that kind of sci-fi. And I felt like the first issue was too on the nose, but this one was it's still the same kind of concept, but it was just done more elegantly. Then we have the best book of the year probably so far, Above Snakes, Sean Lewis.
Best book of the year.
So I don't like Westerns. I don't like dirt. I don't like sand. I don't like cowboy boots.
I don't like dirt in my comic.
I don't like to feel hot when I read something. And you know what I mean? Like I don't want any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the narrator, and he would be like the Western, what kind of narrator would you call them? Like in a movie, you would call him like Lemony Snicket. Like he's very like he's telling the story, but why are you telling it this way? Yeah, the narrator. He's like very eccentric. We don't know his motivations. Is he telling the story honestly? Is he telling it his version of events? Does he know these people personally? And so each of these little trinkets are pieces of this guy Dirt, his story. His name is Dirt, but he's the hero. He's the protagonist. And it takes place in 1866. And just like visually, so Hassan did the lettering for this, and it's masterful. It's beautiful. And Hayden Sherman, like I left the words on this one just as an example. Like you have the narrator in the, you know, like the old novelesque bubbles, and then you have his bird Speck, which is like his line of morality, but leaning towards kill everybody. And it's a revenge story, like most Westerns. They call them blood runners. Mm-hmm. And they're people who are searching or seeking revenge for their loved ones because of the lawless West. And he goes to this town because he's trying to find this gang, the Above Snakes gang. And there's prostitutes against their will. There's dirty old men against their will. Oh, look at this guy right there. He looks kind of shady, you know? There's a lot of that going on. There's violence, you know? Very well done violence and like mood. Like I love a good color palette and how it switches up from like the reds and yellows when he's in combat to like him, and then him being red and purple, red and blue, because he is violence at this point. That's all he seeks is violence. And so I thought that was really cool.
Color. This is Elle color palette. Like,
oh, I love.
If I would have seen this, I would have thought Elle was like, because it is you, like absolutely.
And the cover, even I was like, is it gonna? Because I've read a lot of Westerns where they were like super stylized and they only used greens and yellows and oranges, and so I was a little bit worried because I was like, it's gonna be one of those kind of books. But then once I got into it, I said, oh, yeah, no, this is absolutely right up my alley. And again, I'm not super into Westerns, but this kind of Western, I'm into. And I'm into like Red Dead Redemption. So, but Westerns in general, no. Unless you're Arthur Morgan in a bathtub. That's the kind of Western.
Westerns are, I mean, I don't even like Back to the Future 3 because it's a Western theme.
Just sweaty and dirty. Like, what are you doing? Riding horses bareback? No, thank you. Nothing. And you know, no shade to cowboys. No shade to Brokeback or Fixed Back. I just can't do it myself. No, thank you. What is it? I don't get it. Horses smell. I saw a video on TikTok on how you have to clean studs.
I have not seen that, and I probably won't look it up.
They like
no.
Why would you do that? Like, you like horses that much? Yuck.
No.
Disgusting. And it's
I grew up in the country, but we didn't have any, so
yeah, no, I don't even like the smell of petting zoos. It's just nature isn't for me. I'm an indoor cat, city, urban. I just can't do it. And so when it comes to like Westerns, I'm very much like there has to be something, and I think a good narrator, a good, like, be it unreliable or like a sarcastic one. And there are a lot of tropes in this, like he's an eccentric narrator and the protagonist is like a down on his luck sarcastic asshole, and the bird is like the I know what's gonna happen, but you have to find your way, but also do this. So it came together really nicely, though. It was really good. Can't recommend it enough. I wasn't even gonna read it, but it's easily one of my favorite number ones this year.
Okay, I'm gonna read it, and I will let you know what I think for sure. I'm intrigued because I also, like I said, am not into Westerns. So if you dug it, then maybe I will too.
Yeah, which is funny because like we could read horror where it looks like it smells bad, and there's like bad parts and gore, but dirt and the sun, no, thank you. Not into it.
Oh man.
Well, guys, this has gone on 3 hours too long. I'm sure I'm gonna hear it from Sergio, who is, might not be a part of the show anymore. Let's be real. It's just the 7 of us.
We already changed the password.
We changed the passwords. It's no longer Pink Eyes 3. She said I'm just gonna stay away from TikTok just in case. Yeah, and it's so funny because my TikTok is usually like lesbians cooking dinner for some reason, or lesbian chefs on boats. I don't know why, but that's my algorithm, and I do watch the videos. And then like randomly one popped up, and it was it was like, she's like, do you know what you have to do to clean a horse? And I said, wait a minute, you have to do what? And they're like, you think they clean themselves? And I was like, I guess I thought so. It's an animal. Like, what did it do before humans? It's just gross. Like, I just don't approve. I don't approve of it. And now it makes me look at horse girls differently, knowing where your guys' arms have been.
I don't really know what's going on with the algorithms. Mine is like, I'm not even kidding. Mine is filled with people who have 12 kids and live in an RV full time. And I cannot stop watching it now that they keep showing me. I'm like, God, how do they all live in the RV? Like, I have to see how they take down the setup and cook every day. And people shopping at Walmart. And I'm like, what is this? But I don't know.
For a minute there, it was like the one, there's one TikToker though, you guys, if you guys know, she was a performer overseas and now she's back home, but she like eats food and then just talks about it as she's eating. What I ate today are how I ate like ramen for a full day, stuff like that.
Yeah,
but it's the way she pronounces things, and she tries to get the accent for everything, but she's just like a white girl who's lived places. And so she'll get on there and she'll be like, ramen or like rama, and I'm just like, chill. And then she'll be like, this is the best burrito, and I said, just say burrito.
There are so many people who make more money than I do just sitting and eating Taco Bell in their car. And I'm like, I want to get paid to like eat in my car in front of a camera. Like, I want that. But I don't really understand. And then I watch this dumb shit and I'm like, why? Why am I giving into this and watching someone eat something in their car? Like, I don't understand any of it.
No,
and
I
there's
will
one girl
admit,
who's like,
yeah.
she's like, I'm plus size and I'm not on a diet. This is what I eat.
Yes.
And it's like normal food. and I'm like watching. I'm like, oh my God, I eat that stuff too.
She's like, this is what I eat in a day as a plus size girl who's not on a diet. And I'm just like, so you just eat like and and it's so funny because you can't tell if it's like satire or not. And it's like, is it? But I want to say it's not. And I do say that I am unashamedly inside of the lives every time for Psy Iconic. He's like, he plays a character called Terry Jo, and she's like she lives in Louisiana, and she's not Black though. He's Black, but the character is not Black, and so she'll try to like bait people into saying things. And it's the funniest stuff, and I just be watching it because I'm like, how do so many people fall into the trap of just being problematic? Like, you just couldn't hold that slur in, could you?
I am really glad people cannot see our view history, not because it would have anything on my end like obscene, but because it's so freaking dorky. It's like the total opposite. And people would be like, what are you? Like, why do you do this?
Oh, for sure. And then, but now that like people could see when you visit their profile, so I had to make on TikTok.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant Instagram. I was like, oh shit.
Oh no, that would be a problem. Well, would it be a problem for me? I don't know. I'll just start using the House of Nerd account to look at stuff. But for which we could talk about the algorithm on the House of Nerd accounts. It's not me. It's Sergio. But on TikTok they could see who looks at your profile now. So I had to make a second account so I could snoop. And I'm like, no way you guys are gonna get me caught up. But yeah.
Yep.
So this is a comic book show. Thank you guys for watching.
Had a great time. Thank you everybody for watching our bullshit.
I don't know how
3
to
hours.
end it. Hold on.
Bye.
How do you end it? Hold on.
We'll just sit here for another hour to figure it out.
Hold on. Do I hit end broadcast?